like to call this meeting to order. And the first order of business is to go into closed meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussion. Section 2.2-3711, consultation with legal counsel and briefings from staff members or consultants pertaining to the actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by counsel. Under that would be Elliott Creek Road abandonment request. The other items would be discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. And those would be AFD Advisory Committee, Community Services Board, Economic Development Authority, Planning Commission, and Personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Fitz?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Here we go. Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Need a motion to go out of closed meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Fitz?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Add to mine, please, for the time that I was there.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meetings was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies, and only public business matters as were identified in a motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to certify a closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Fitz?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye for the time that I was there.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Before we move on, I'd like to apologize to all the citizens here this afternoon. We tried to get these meetings started at exactly 7:15, but we had some other areas that run over a little bit. So please accept the board's apology for that. The next order of business is our invocation. We usually observe a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand. And after we reflect on that take that moment of silence, Mr. Meadows will lead us in the pledge.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is delegations, and we have one this evening, and that will be Mr. David Clark from the Department of Transportation to give the board an update on the road issues throughout Montgomery County.
Good evening.
Not a lot of updates for road issues due to the weather we've had. I think when I was here last, it was just before our big snow, just before Valentine's Day. And so since then, that's been taking up most of our efforts, either snow removal, getting ready for snow, cleaning up after snow. The winter, that amount of snow and the freezing and everything is sort of taking its toll, not only just paved roads, but really our unpaved roads as well. As you all know, there's 120 miles of unpaved road in Montgomery County. Probably has more traffic on those 120 miles of unpaved road than any other county in VDOT's Salem district. So it's always a challenge to keep everybody happy on these unpaved roads when you get weather like we have, but we're doing our best. I have a couple things that we did talk about last time. As Biggs was asking about some guardrail on Brush on Mountain Road. We've reviewed that. That will be put in. It's going to take a while, but cost is going to probably be somewhere in the $15,000 range. I'll get an exact number for you here when our guardrail guy is going to come up and finish up his estimate this week. That money does come out of your secondary road construction funds, but you are getting a lot more than you were before. Still not as much as we used to get, but they've restored some of your unpaved road funding in the next several years. So guardrail, new guardrail, which comes out of that, won't be coming out of your secondary, your unpaved road fund money. You get about $100,000 of funds that can be used just about anywhere, and so that's probably what it'll come out of.
Oh, okay. The constituent that brought this to our attention before all the bad weather back in the fall when I first asked about this is asking now, like, is it, what's, now it's the end of the bad weather and it still wasn't put. So I told him I would specifically ask you that question, and when was it going to be put? I mean, because the whole problem was the cars going off the road there.
Right. But I mean, guardrail's not like fixing a pile or cutting trees. It's something that has to be reviewed, estimated, and can't really be done in real bad weather. We took guardrail requests throughout the year, and about April and May, when we knew how much the construction budget had, we put them in one time a year.
So when would this be that you'd be putting it in?
Hopefully the next couple months.
So I can tell him that in 8 weeks it's going to be put in?
I can't promise you that, no.
Okay, so is there any other way to make sure that this happens in a timely manner, or are we just sort of stuck?
This is kind of the process we have. We usually don't put in guardrail on first come, first served basis. There's limited funds we can put guardrail in. As I said, we used to take requests throughout the fiscal year. At the end of the year, we reviewed them, and a lot of times we're only able to do maybe the first couple. This year, this is the only one we've had that I know of, only new guardrail request.
Well, I'm just going to publicly state that this is the only thing I've ever asked for my district in 19 years I've been on the board. And I was worried about the safety issue, and I was hoping it was going to be done before we had all the bad weather, but I understand that's not your personal doing, that's just the way that VDOT operates. So I'm going to go and tell, because he's already contacted me, so I'm going to tell him that you're hopeful it will be done in 8 weeks. And then what do we do if it's not done in 8 weeks? Because I'm not going to let it go.
Well, the funding is there and it qualifies for guardrail, so it's going to get done, but it's a matter of getting it on our contractor. I don't have the machinery that installs guardrail. So it has to be put on the contract, and the contract is also guardrail repair work as well as installation of new guardrail.
Well, if anything happens before you come back next time, could you send me an email to let me know it's happening, so at least I would know something was happening? And like I said, I'm not blaming you. I understand this is a policy of VDOT, but I'm just trying to make it clear that this was a safety issue, and we've had all this bad weather, and he was trying to bring it to our attention so that nothing would happen. And and I've been on this board a long time, and I've seen many guardrails put in over time because of safety issues. So I just want to make it clear that I really need this to happen.
It will happen.
Okay.
Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, I've got one thing here. It's a little note from a constituent, and thought I'd just go ahead and just read exactly what she wrote. Said, I noticed on the agenda for Monday that VDOT will be present. VDOT has not followed through on many promises they made to the residents of Oliver Road over the past 4 to 5 years. The issue at hand is where Oliver Road merges with Flatwoods Road. There's a ditch on Oliver Road that feeds into the ditch on Flatwoods at the bottom of the hill. VDOT has promised over the years to clean out the ditch in their right-of-way, thus allowing drainage from Oliver Road to feed into it. They have not done that, and when precipitation occurs, it leaves Oliver Road and goes directly onto Flatwoods. In cold weather, it freezes and creates a hazard to traffic coming around a blind curve. I request that you encourage VDOT to do what they said they would do. They had requested that our mailboxes be moved to accomplish this task. We will be more than happy to do that if they give us an indication of when they intend to clean out the ditch. And of course, as a response would be appreciated. So I've got that if you need it.
Yes,
I'm just,
name and address.
thank you. That's all.
Any other questions or comments from the board members?
I just have a little bit, obviously Elliott Creek is on our agenda, and I seem to remember, I really put you on the spot the last time you were here, and sorry a little bit for doing that to you, but we talked about a boulder in the road. And I went out there, I guess it was yesterday, and the boulder is still in the middle of the road. And you can barely get by. There's maybe a few inches. Is there any plans in any time in the near future that VDOT is going to clear that, or is that just that road such a low priority or no
Oh,
priority?
no, in fact, I thought it had been done, so.
As God is my witness, it's still there, or there's a new boulder there. Now, one or the other.
Yeah, one of the two.
So,
It's too big to be having babies. It is what it is.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
The next item on our agenda is public addresses, and we have a number of people signed up to speak tonight. And the first thing that I will say is that as I call your names, please come to the speaker's podium and speak clearly, state your name and address, and use the podium mic. Speakers have 5 minutes. All comments must be directed to the board and not members of the audience. Both speakers and the audience will exercise courtesy at all times. And please leave any written statements or comments that you have with our clerk. So the first person to speak is, that signed up to speak is Angie Cornett.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening. I'm here tonight. I'm Angie Cornett. I live in Shawsville and I teach Eastmont Elementary in 3rd grade. And I'm here to ask you to reconsider the tax, lack of a tax increase. We have never before had to make up what would be an approximate $4 million shortfall in our school board budget if we were not to receive any assistance from you. This puts us back to a budget operating at 2007, which really impacts and hurts teachers. It takes away, gradually, year after year, it's taken away from the good things that we were able to do. Just some of the things that would be impacted if our budget were not funded include no new students will be able to go to the governor's school. Field trips would be cut. And especially in my area, in Eastern Montgomery, a lot of our children don't go on vacations for financial reasons or parents' work schedules or whatever. And field trips are an opportunity for our students to learn more about their community, there's the Commonwealth, and just different opportunities that they would not have outside the regular curriculum. And they're very important, I think, for social development. Our alternative education and ISS and school suspension programs would be cut. And this is really big, I think, because we have huge issues with behavioral and emotional well-being that our students need additional services for. And when we cut those programs, we cannot meet their emotional and behavioral needs. And when those needs aren't met, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They cannot learn, their brain cannot function when those needs are not met. Teachers have not had a raise since 2008 that's been beneficial. What we did get was once taken away by the federal payroll cuts. And last year, I believe we got 1.5% or 2%, but that was taken away because of the issues with VRS. And one of the cuts that's potential if we're not funded is that we would lose our health insurance being paid. And that would give us another cut in salary. A lot of teachers are making less money than they made 2 years ago. We would have to lose approximately 40 positions. That would increase class size, reduce course offerings, reduce areas like fine arts and PE, and there's been plenty of research about how those subject areas impact positively a student's academic learning. We would have to lose school lunch aides. This really affects teacher morale, especially in elementary school. When we have to do lunch duty, we only get about 10 to 15 minutes to eat. You don't have time to go to the bathroom. You don't have time to collaborate with other teachers, about students that you have. It's just a morale issue. It's unacceptable to have to eat in 10 to 15 minutes. That's just not, it's not human. The reduction in assistant principals is a concern, especially at the elementary school level. We are the foundation of the education system, and when elementary principals get cut, assistant principals get cut, it affects student behavior, staff development. It decreases the administration's ability to be instructional leaders, which is the main goal of an administrator, to be an instructional leader, to improve the test scores that we are forced to take by the state, and graduation rates. And these are the main goals of our education system. Parents might have to pay for middle school athletic programs. It would take away intramural sports for families. And there could be school consolidations and closures, which would negatively affect 3 communities in Montgomery County beyond repair, I believe. I don't understand how a reasonable person in the community would not appreciate the importance of these issues. Education is our future. I have to pay taxes too. I'm willing to pay a tax increase. A lot of the teachers at my school are willing to pay tax increases. These cuts are just unacceptable. I don't know how we can think that we can make $4 million in cuts and have any kind of quality education. It's just not conscionable. I ask you to please reconsider and give the school board what they need to not have to make these cuts. Mr. Creed, I hope that you and I can get together for coffee soon. Thank you.
Thank you. The next individual signed up is Mary Ann Cap.
How do you spell her name?
C-A-P-P.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the board for making this work session possible. I think there's a lot of issues that need to be considered in the requested abandonment of Elliott Creek Road. My name is Mary Ann Cap from 2732 Sugar Grove Road. I have submitted a letter to the board today in rebuttal to the points in the request for abandonment of Elliott Creek Road. Also, I'm submitting more signatures on the petition to keep Elliott Creek Road a public way. The petition outlines the reason this road is a necessity. There are altogether approximately 90 signatures, and probably more coming. Another point I'd like to make the board aware of is that we in Sugar Grove, all the way to Rogers, are part of the Shawsville Magisterial Voting District. This is so because of Elliott Creek Road. My letter discusses Article 7, Section 5 of the Virginia Constitution. This road is a connector road and contiguous from Allegheny Springs to Rogers. We must recognize that and keep the public way whole, as it is today and has been through history. Speaking of history, the law calls for consideration of historic value. I've submitted excerpts from several history reference books, about a half a dozen history reference books, that show the road was first utilized around 1745 and through the 1800s, was so busy that a post office was requested and came into being in 1900, known as the Harless Post Office, on the property that I own. There was a canal being planned to move goods and undergoing surveying for locks and dams until the railroad came into survey along Elliott Creek Road. It was their preferred route. They discovered iron ore on a track near Elliott Creek Road, down near the end where that ford is how I can estimate. And they discovered zinc and lead in Rogers. These materials are valuable for building rails. The railroad was later diverted to Christiansburg by the Montagues. Many stores, shops, and mills existed in this area from Allegheny Springs to Rogers. There were schools, 2 schools in Allegheny Springs and in Sugar Grove, 2 post offices, and a lot of commerce activity. Another thing I'm concerned about here is that the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries has not been notified as a party to these proceedings. In my opinion, it may be a violation of due process because history shows this may be a navigable waterway and the ford on Elliott Creek Road would be a landing. Lastly, this road in the long ago and current times has necessity for transportation directly to Shawsville and beyond for work, medical facilities, and emergency equipment for fire, ambulance, and swift water rescue all reside in our Shawsville district at the Shawsville-Elliston Fire Department and Rescue Squad. We are a flood-prone community and need quick access. We are also a fire-prone community with forests and forest fires. In fact, 3 days after our hearing here in December, there was a forest fire on the corner of Craig's Mountain Road and Elliott Creek Road, and the fire truck had to sit up at the Oak Grove Church. They could bring in fire trucks, and they have, as Ms. Witt testified in the last hearing, in the 90s, a fire truck came up that way. We also had an incident recently with a neighbor having a seizure or something, and ambulance needed to come in. When her husband spoke to the ambulance people and they were aware of this Elliott Creek Road issue, the ambulance people were alarmed. We are also an aging and infirm community with disabled veterans, and we are also a community with small children with special needs. Time matters in an emergency. Coming in via this road, if it needs to be maintained, or as it has been and vehicles have come in, is important in saving lives. The road is not in the horrible condition as described by Karen Dodson-Witt, in my opinion. It has good drainage and grade. There are some narrow spots, but it has cost the county very little to have this road and will cost the county a lot should we lose this road in the community. No one is asking for any money right now. The citizens are willing to maintain the VDOT section, the section that VDOT does not maintain. I've submitted videos and pictures this afternoon, and I'm requesting that you review this. I've also submitted maps that date back to the 30s that show the continuous road. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you. I think it's Patricia Winter is the next speaker.
I'm Patricia Winter. I live at 1858 Bow Hill Road, which connects to Elliott Creek Road. I signed the petition that Mary Ann Camp has given you. I am opposed to the abandonment of this road, especially for emergency services. Thank you.
And thank you. Robbie Jones.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you for letting me speak here tonight. My name is Robbie Jones. I live at 996 Coal Hollow Road, Christiansburg, Virginia. Tonight I am here speaking as a citizen of Montgomery County. I am an employee of Montgomery County Public Schools, but tonight I am a citizen. I want to enlighten, I'm going to educate all of you. I'm going to give you the definition of a living wage. Living wage, the minimum wage a person can live on with basic dignity, without struggling, without having to go to friends, relatives, the government, or community for assistance. A living wage is a wage that is sufficient to pay for basic necessities here in Montgomery County. I am a custodian. I am a supervisor in the school or in the custodial department. I'm lucky. I have 9 people that work with me that don't make a living wage. And you can look on the school board salary scales, and in 2008, 6 years ago, their living wage was $11.52 an hour. Custodians in Montgomery County school systems do not make anywhere close to that. I also want to let you know that my crew, and some of you know them, some of you don't, whoever's been blessed to be at my school, I have the hardest working crew in Montgomery County. They give me 150% every day, without complaint. I did go to the school board and speak at a meeting a few weeks ago, and I asked my guys, I said, is there anything you want me to tell them or ask for? And they jokingly said, if we get a raise like we did last time but took money out of our pockets, tell them not to bother. So I did. I think I might have upset a few people. But it's difficult when you can't make ends meet to start with, and there's money coming out of your pocket when you think you're going to get more money and your paycheck's less. And that's money that you count on. And I know many employees have to borrow for gas money just to get to work. And it's not just my building, it's across the whole county. I've seen teachers purchase supplies, clothing, snacks for their students so that they can have the best chance of being successful. Some come to school hungry, we give them food. Some don't have coats, we make sure they've got coats. So I'm just really here tonight to ask you to consider whatever needs to be done. The school board presented a needs-based budget. That's what we need to function. And to take anything from that, I just can't see it happening. Not in good conscience, I can't see it happening. Thank you.
Thank you. John P. Gill.
Members of the board, my name is John Gill. I live 2037 Puckville Road in Pilot. I don't agree with the school board's request for the following reasons. Several years ago, after the end of the school year, the school board found $600,000 and promptly provided the teacher bonus. The following budget time, the school board asked for about $1.3 million. This was to cover the purchase of buses and to make repairs and address the safety issues that should have been taken care of with the prior year's money. And that was given as a bonus. Next, the school board was provided money for repairs at Christiansburg High School. The school board again redirected the money allocated to other areas. This year, there was a request in the budget for buses which should have been paid for with prior year's money. In the past years, the school board has not used the money provided for the school board to use as it was intended. And so they just do with the money what they want to. So all they were looking for is a big pot of money. The school board pays 100% of the teachers' health care. I'm not sure that there's anybody around here that gets, at least I don't. even though the first-year teacher begins with a higher wage than the average Montgomery citizen. This provides a first-year teacher with a pay and benefits package of over $50,000. The school board now provides the bus drivers with over $400 a month for health care. A bus driver, speaking in a prior school board meeting, said that he did not need the money as his health care was provided by other insurance, but he appreciated the money. I question, who else is the health care are the citizens paying for? I submit that the budget line items 16, 17, 18, and 31 be removed from the budget, and removal of these items should amount to about $5 million and balance the school board budget, which currently takes over 70% of the county budget. Some things that I just made notes on. There's 3 elementary schools in the Blacksburg area. They only have about 250 students in. Those people, I made a recommendation prior to this board that the school board needs to go ahead and look and combine, rearrange, and simplify. Evidently, they don't know how to do that. So they got 3 schools over there that have about 250 children, and maybe they should be closing down or rearranging and putting them into other classes, combining, rearranging, and simplifying. Over $2 million from the state, which has been indicated by Mr. Meadows, his recommendation is going to be coming from the state. So that is an increase they're going to be receiving, or should be receiving, based on his recommendation. The school is not the only person that has to operate on a limited budget, a budget that you don't have much money on. There was a lot of times when I'm retired, and I didn't get a lot of Social Security money, and I still had to pay 20% for my health care, and I also only got just like 1 point, I think it was 6 or 7% for the pay raise for that cost of living allowance. So I submit that the teachers and the school have to take into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Alley.
Hello, I am Michelle Alley, and I live at 2602 Sugar Grove Road. Thank you for the opportunity to come and address the board about my opposition of closing of Elliott Creek Road. I am the mother of 5 children, and we love that road. It is the highlight of our spring and summer and all 4 seasons. The children love to play in the creek, put on their helmets and ride their bikes, and walk their dogs. We don't have to go to the Huckleberry Trail. If you haven't had the opportunity to go down there and visit it, it is heaven. It's serenity. We love it. I ran rescue for Christiansburg for 3 years as a volunteer, my daughter and I. I ran for Ramsey for 2 years in Pulaski County. Time is of the essence if there's an emergency down there. And I would want swift rescue, emergency services. I love the community I live in. Help us protect it so that we can enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Pleasant.
My name is Kelly Pleasant. I live at 2737 Old Fort Road in Blacksburg. I'm a 22-year resident of Montgomery County. I thank you for providing time for public address this evening. I thank you for your past support in helping to close the gap that's been left by state underfunding. You have provided in the past, and it has shown your support for public education in Montgomery County, so I thank you for that. I appreciate how difficult your job is as you assess the important needs in our county. I am a public educator, but as others before me have spoken about the detriment of budget cuts to Montgomery County Public Schools, I'll be brief. You all know the importance of an educated citizenship. I I do urge you, however, to remain diligent as you deliberate next Monday at your budget workshop, because all of the citizens of Montgomery County are counting on you to provide services that we depend on every day. If that means an increase in taxes, then please understand it may be necessary to do so. This isn't about winning or losing, even though that's how it's starting to feel. It's about the responsibility of government to provide appropriate services to its citizens. And if you're keeping score, please feel free to mark me and my husband, yes, for increasing taxes, if it means keeping or improving services, including public schools in Montgomery County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Karen Witt.
Evening, I'm Karen Witt. I live at 2292 Elliott Creek Road. I want to personally thank Vicki for all her time and professionalism that she's helped me a whole lot getting ready for this speech. Okay, so I have on December 16th, I had showed a video of the current maintained state road, which y'all all got the opportunity to view. Tonight, I would like to show a video of the discontinued part. Here we go. So, right now, we are at the end of the maintained state road that stops at the creek. We are now forging the creek, which is part of the discontinued road of Elliott Creek Road in the section that I'm asking for abandonment. As you can see, we are forging the creek 375 feet. That would be 375 feet of a bridge to cross over in order to get to the discontinued section of this Elliott Creek Road. This section was discontinued back in the late 70s due to constant flooding. The road is constantly being flooded out. Trees are down. There's also incidents where people would just ride around, party, trash, rut, go on to personal properties. So this section was discontinued. Now, as you saw coming out of the creek, we are now on the discontinued section going towards Split Rail, which goes to Shawsville. The road is rocky. It has a sandy base, showing that it definitely is flooded quite often. To the right and to the left of this video is private property that I own. Here, right here, was a flood just several years ago that came through, and this is the result of it's blocking the road right now. You are going around it on private property. You are now getting back onto the road. I say, it doesn't appear that this road has been used for a very long time. This section of the road is the part of the original wagon trail. It is the historical road. A previous statement that this road was historical and that landowners maintained the road. Myself. But according to the 2008 letter from Mr. John C. Thompson, a staff engineer with VDOT, it states, quote, "Any work performed within this right-of-way without first obtaining permission from VDOT is guilty of a misdemeanor under the section 33.1 to 12 and 33.1 to 9, Code of Virginia." As you can tell, going down the road, there's a lot of trees that have fallen through. There's actually a lot of saplings that are starting to grow up pretty tall. They were going around. This cable was there when I purchased the land. It was put up because even after the road was closed, there were people coming with four-wheelers and riding around into private property. And again, to the right is a field that is private property. And to the left, 15 feet from the center of this road to the creek is private property. Recently, I had a neighbor state that Tom and I were good land stewards. Yes, we are. We have kept up the road from the beginning down to the end of the road where the creek is. We have kept debris out of the creek. We are charter members of the Elliott Creek Watershed Protection Council that was started in the early 90s. We have participated for many years in the annual blooming and grooming cleaning up the section of Craigs Mountain Road and Elliott Creek Road in and around the creek. There was talk about having a greenway through this section. I asked you who's going to maintain it, if it is a greenway. And also that there has to be a donation of a 40-foot right-of-way. Also, my understanding, there was a comment last time about the Code of Virginia 33.1 to 151, and that's my time up. So I will stop this. I appreciate your time. Let me see here. And quickly, oh, it's messed up, okay. So I wanted to show you at the end of the road, perhaps maybe the next person can. Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Okay.
I don't know.
We'll fix it. We'll fix it.
Thank you.
Jennifer Shanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Shanks, and I live on 2005 Elliott Creek Road. And I also have 3 children that were born in, they were all born in the Grove and have lived their whole life there. Still, I live about 1 mile from Tom and Karen's home on Elliott Creek Road as well. I've lived down in the Grove for 14 years, and I've walked and I've driven down this road that is the part that's drivable, that you can take 1 car, many times, and I do support the board to abandon this road so that Tom and Karen Witt can take over the care and maintenance of this road. I strongly encourage you guys to make that decision. Over the years, I've had 2 family members get lost coming to my house and accidentally drive down this part of Elliott Creek Road. Both times, thankfully, no harm was done to them. This road is very narrow, has lots of blind curves, and it's impossible for nearly impossible for 2 cars to pass each other. Secondly, there is a lot of cost for the town to keep up this road for one family that lives down that road. By doing this, you would also keep people that are uninvited down there who don't know the area, keep them safe from running into another car or possibly going off the road. Thank you very much for listening to my concerns.
Thank you. Leanne Nystrom.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Nystrom. I live at 1613 Bow Hill Road, and that's a part of Sugar Grove. I've lived in Sugar Grove since 1979, and I'm one of the unfortunate people who was able to drive my car through that creek in the late 1970s. I did it once. I never did it again. Shortly after that, there was a petition put out by the gentleman that lived at the end of the Shawsville side, because he was constantly being hassled, shall I say, by young people who were driving through that creek, get their car stuck, and then he had a tractor and they would ask if he would pull them out. So back in somewhere around 1980, we signed a petition, which the county obviously agreed to close that road. There are a lot of old historical roads that go through Sugar Grove. I have been riding my horse through Sugar Grove since 1980, still doing it today, and I can tell you that there was a old road at the end of Bow Hill Road that would take you out to Elliott Creek. There is one short of the end of Bow Hill Road that would take you up to Pilot. There's one on my own property called the Old Jeep Trail, if you have the historical maps, that will take you up to Pilot. There's one off Elliott Creek that will go into Oak Grove. And I dare say that I don't think any of these roads are going to be reopened, and yet any one of them would be less expensive than trying to reopen the road to Shawsville. I work in the College of Engineering at Virginia Tech, and I work with some of the best engineers in the world, and one of them, Richard Wires, who is a bridge engineer. I did a press release on his work, and this is an old one, 2000. And at that time, he said a new bridge on average is 8,000 square feet, and it's $75 to $100 per square foot to build. That's $800,000. And if you had 2 bridges for the 300 and some odd feet that we're talking about, that would be a minimum of $1.6 million. Now that was $2,000. I know that we cannot afford to reopen this portion of the road to Shawsville. The people who are here for the schools, we're talking about a $4 million shortfall. I have paid an extra $1,000 in taxes in the last 2 years, and I haven't added to my property. I haven't bought a new car. It's just because of the taxes that are going up, because we're trying to help the school system. We've had a lot of problems. I think Susan Gray said it correctly back in December. The reality is we do not have the money to do everything that would like to be done. There is a recreational area in the Sugar Grove portion of Christiansburg. People who are spoken here tonight, many of them have their own recreation areas, and that they are privileged to that, and it's a beautiful part of the country. And I think that one other thing I wanted to bring up was that back in the 1990s, if any of you knew of Mr. Fred Alderman, his son went off that road and became a quadriplegic. That is a dangerous road, and if you're going to widen, you're going to have to widen it and keep it up to date. And right now, as you know, Craig Mountain Road was only, well, we just had it worked on this week. The last time we had it worked on was before the December board meeting when we were here. Intriguing how those 3 months went by. The potholes were so bad, it was like driving in a third world country. We had to stop the car in one section where Elliott Creek Road is, where it meets Sugar Grove Road, because you could not drive through there. So only so much money, only so many ways to spend it, and I think there are better ways to spend it than to, for the county to keep this road open. And I strongly endorse you to abandon this road. Thank you.
Thank you. Kara Dotson.
Hello, my name's Kara Dodson. I currently live in Boone, North Carolina, but I previously lived at 2292 Elliott Creek Road with my aunt and uncle Karen and Tom Witt. So I'm going to try and start this video where we left off for Karen. Okay, so you can watch that as well. But I just wanted to voice my support for obviously abandoning this road, the request to abandon it. We brought up the issues with public safety, our personal safety, our private property rights. Many of you have visited the road, seen how narrow it is and how dangerous it can be if 2 cars came or other vehicles came and met on the narrow sections. And I want to speak from my personal experience. I did an undergraduate degree at Virginia Tech in environmental management and water resources. And just knowing this section of the road, and there's wetlands areas, and if you had to build a road through here to make it accessible, a 2-lane road, yes, that would be millions of dollars for a bridge. You would also have to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers and several Virginia permits for the road. So it would not be a simple process of making it a historical place and then putting in a road. Our family has been here for over 25 years. I plan on working this land far into the future, so this decision goes far beyond a few years and even your time on this board. I'd also like to say that with taxpayer dollars and all of these budget issues, this is a very, this is a significant decision to me, but in the long term, we need to be making more time for bigger decisions like supporting our education system, like the women that have come up here and said that earlier. I think that making this decision and making it more simple and straightforward is possible, and that you can do that tonight, or well, you won't be making a decision tonight, but in the future. And I remember even there was a general store. It was like an old building on the corner of our property when I was a kid, and that is the old general store from when it was still standing and there was post offices in Sugar Grove, and that was torn down and no one made a fuss. So I really don't understand the historical significance if it hasn't been continually protected and advocated for. I work for a land conservation group. I work for historical conservation and private property rights all the time. And I really think this is a simple decision for you as supervisors and for our county. And I know that saving money on roads doesn't mean saving money for education, but it makes more time for you to make those important decisions. So please consider this. And the environmental impacts, one more thing is that Elliott Creek Road goes into the Roanoke River Basin that provides drinking water for hundreds of thousands of people. Protecting our headwaters by reducing traffic and reducing road use and public use has myriad effects downstream, and you can even consider that. So thank you.
Thank you. Pam Arnold.
My name is Pam Arnold. I live at 2737 Mount Pleasant Road in Charlottesville, Virginia. I've lived there since 1991. My property lies on the banks of Elliott Creek. I own, well, if you own the creek where it goes into the South Fork of the Roanoke River. I've witnessed the impact high water and flooding has had on the banks of the Elliott Creek as well as the nearby terrain. I have seen many trucks hauling gravel to repair Mount Pleasant Road up to the standard it has been prior to flooding or prior to high water. I've also seen that gravel in the creek right beside my horse field. I am in support of the request to abandon this section of unkept State Road 675. Reestablishment of this section of road up to a preferred standard would certainly cost money, a lot of money. I feel that if the state deemed this section of road to have been that important, that this boulder that has been shown in the video would not have been there since 2008. And I think that money in this county could be better well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Witt.
Hello, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having us here, and thank you for all the work you've spent on this. In 25 years we've lived on this road, the problems have gotten worse. There's trees on this right-of-way that are 40 and 50 years old. And what they're doing, there was a geologist down there recently doing some work. The trees are making the road more narrow by the nature of growing and the root systems and loosening up the bank. The road has not been properly maintained. The right-of-way has just gotten worse. The trees have gotten worse and worse. The road is so narrow that two vehicles cannot pass on a lot of the sections. There's 5 sections that way. They're all in the bluff. There's also 7 sections of this road that flood. The entrance to this road has a 4-foot culvert, and over the past 25 years, about 12 times that culvert has been flooded out. We couldn't get in or out. We'd like to, that's one thing we'd like to do is bring that entrance up to standard where the flood will not wash it out every time. I hate to say it, but I feel like VDOT has abused the privilege, which a right-of-way is a privilege. I feel like it's been abused. They haven't taken care of it. They're not going to take care of it. The easiest thing for you to do is let us take it over and save what's left of it. Because some of these shoulders are getting so bad that it's almost not room for one vehicle to pass, which those of you that have come down there, I think and there's some of you not been able to come down there. I appreciate the ones of you who come down there and all you've done. So I would encourage you to abandon this road and get it out of the system. I don't think the county wants this kind of road. We've seen too many accidents there. There's the emergency vehicles There's no houses at the end of the road. There's no reason for emergency vehicles to go down there other than fire. And when we have a fire, they seem to have, be able to get down there. The utility companies can't get down the last section of the road. They have to take their trucks through our fields and go across the creeks to get to the electrical. Because the road is not wide enough, as ones of you have seen, to get a big truck down there. So I encourage you to abandon it, get it out of your system, and not have mismanaged properties like this in your system. I think this is too progressive a county to put up with this kind of road and call it safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Blivens.
Good evening, Board. Sherry Blevins, 240 Virginia Drive, Christiansburg. I'm here again to address the continuing threats and concerns of safety issues with Falling Branch Elementary School in regards to the close proximity of the park and ride that's located less 50 feet from the school. As you are aware of, there have been over 50 documented incidents by staff with patrons from the park and ride trying to gain access to the school. Over 35 police calls directly resulting from the park and ride. And at our last meeting, on February 10th, Sheriff Witt addressed the board and explained how a possibly armed and dangerous fugitive was apprehended by the U.S. Marshal Services at gunpoint off the megabus as children were being dismissed. Since I last spoke on February 10th, I just wanted to update you on the current situation. There have been 6 additional incidents, according to parents and staff, with patrons from the park and ride attempting to gain access to the school property. At least once, Christiansburg Police Department was called and responded to the school. We are thankful that this board at the last meeting publicly committed that this issue is a top priority. With your suggestion, you asked us to continue to make noise, and we are doing so.
That's right.
We are just frustrated that this issue has been over a year and still nothing has been resolved. On a daily basis, over thousands of people use that park and ride and can have access to our children. I am here again to encourage this board to work swiftly with VDOT to remove or cease the use of that parking ride away from our school. With upcoming spring season, there will be lots of outdoor activities and sporting activities that will have children very accessible to anyone that wants to walk over from that parking ride. We also have many mobile units in the back of the school that are accessible to anyone that wants to walk over from the parking ride. This is not only an issue for Falling Branch Elementary School, but this affects the entire community. Not only Falling Branch students use the Falling Branch School. There are softball teams that will be using that field there at the school, and soccer teams that will be using that field at the school. This is a community issue. We are here again just to encourage with a sense of urgency. Every day we wait, we put our children at risk. Every day. That school does not have a resource officer to handle immediate situations. As parents, as a community, we are scared. We do not have 6 years to wait on the improvement plan as suggested by VDOT. We need to do something now. So we're here as parents again to strongly encourage and to urge this board to move swiftly. We're here to speak up for the youngest citizens of Montgomery County, our elementary school children. We want you to do everything possible to urge VDOT to cease the use of that spot until we can move it to a more secure location with proper amenities. We understand the value of public transportation, We know VDOT works hard. We know that they're not the enemy, but unfortunately, that situation, that lot was placed there after the school. There's no foresight. There was inadequate foresight, or even to think of future problems that would occur at that school. In 2005, a report was done that stated the deficiencies. So it's not that VDOT didn't know that the spot had outgrown its use and that there were some major deficiencies. They've known. But it is a threat, a continued threat for our children and staff. Just since February 10th, 6 more incidents that we as parents are aware of. We are scared. Do something before it is too late. We know that you support us. Just please make sure that VDOT knows that we're not going to go away, that we're going to continue to fight, because these are our children, this is our community, these are our teachers, and we're going to fight for them, and we hope that you will as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Hurst.
Tracy Hurst, 2340 Glade Drive in Christiansburg, and hello again. Here we are again. I want to thank you all for your pledge of support with us at Falling Branch Elementary. I am the PTA president at Falling Branch, and we're hoping to hear from some updates from you guys soon. I did email all of the delegates. I emailed all of you guys. I emailed VDOT. I've heard back from Ms. Biggs and Mr. Tuck. I'm hoping to hear some more feedback back, since it's been a month since we had last talked. We'll continue to reach out and ask for additional help and bring this to the forefront in the media. That's one of the things we're trying to do the most, is to continue to push it, as you guys have requested us to the media. Get this out there. Make sure we're not forgotten, because we're not going anywhere. I know we've been told that the wheels of government do turn slowly, but we just refuse to let that be something that keeps us from having an immediate change, something that happens now to protect our children, because they are in danger right now. And I don't want us to be in a situation where something horrible happens and we are saying, oh, we begged for help. So I'm asking again for you all to push VDOT, to push these people. Help us find a way to make this change before something happens and it's too late. The priorities so often seem to get off, and right now the priorities, they should always foremost be our children who can't protect themselves. They can't speak for themselves, so we're speaking for them. And we're just begging, again, for the safety of our children, and I hope for your continued support, and that you will continue to reach out to everyone, just like we're trying to do, and not just ask them to help, but just insist that this has gone on long enough. There's no sense in prolonging this and waiting for something bad to happen. So I'm just asking for you guys again to reach out to them and continue to help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eddie Woolwine.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Woolwine. I live at 2490 Glade Drive in Christiansburg, and I just wanted to voice my opinion tonight on the Elliott's Creek Road abandonment issue. Basically, from a historical perspective, within your documentation it says, in considering the abandonment of any section of road under the provisions of this section, due consideration shall be given to the historic value, if any. My ancestors have lived in the Sugar Grove area since the early 1800s. Four of my great-grandfathers fought the Civil War and are buried in that area. I do genealogy research and historical research in the area, and the access to public waterways and roads and cemeteries, things of that nature, is very important to me. People getting stuck on that road is not a new issue. One of the very first stories my grandmother, which was Virginia Kathleen Vest, told me is that the first date with my grandfather, they got her father's vehicle stuck in Elliott's Creek going down to Shawsville and had to be pulled out by a team of horses down there. So this is nothing new as far as people getting stuck in the creek. I understand from my landowner's issue, there are a lot of concerns of people you may not want down there going through that road and things of that nature, but there's as many good people in this area, myself hopefully included in that like to have access to these roads and the cemeteries, churches, community that my ancestors did. If the road is in disrepair now, why has the funding not been there to help keep the road up? I do not know those issues and don't want to really approach it from a monetary standpoint or from a landowner standpoint, only from a historical value. And the history of the area is very important. As far as my ancestors that still live in that area, my father still lives at the top of the road at Craig's Mountain Road, and me and him regularly go down into that area to visit cemeteries and things of that nature of my ancestors. Would like to be able to go down that road, from Allegheny Springs to Sugar Grove for the purpose of visiting the library down there on Allegheny Springs Road and then visiting the cemeteries up in Sugar Grove. I've been told for the last 10 years through word of mouth, the road is no longer accessible. People have it blocked, fences up, trees down, things of that nature. So I always have to go about 30 minutes out of my way. A trip that would take me 5 minutes now takes me 30. I got ancestors buried in Allegheny Springs, in the Piedmont Cemetery. Would be a very easy trip to go from there to Sugar Grove if the road was open. Like I say, now it takes me a lot longer to get around that issue. I appreciate your time, appreciate having the opportunity to have a voice, and I hope that you have a good night.
Thank you. The next individual is Lori, and I'm not going to attempt to butcher your last name.
I'll go ahead and give you my full name. Lori Falls Schetzeler at 495 Southview Terrace, Christiansburg. So I come here tonight to speak to the board about the park and ride at Falling Branch Elementary. My son Joseph is a first grade student there, and my other son Brock will be a kindergartner in the fall. Tonight I want to speak to you from the heart. You have heard facts about the concerns about the park and ride, and you have heard those concerns again and again, and I'm sure you will still yet hear them again. I was in line with my 5-year-old on that fateful day when all the drama happened at the park and ride. And I say fateful day, but was it really? In all honesty, no. But could it have been? Yes. I think I did a very good job at keeping my 5-year-old son busy and distracted so that he wouldn't notice much of the commotion. Watching Sheriff Witt, along with a couple of the deputies and 4 or 5 U.S. Marshals wearing their bulletproof vests with guns in hand, proved to be quite nerve-wracking for me as a mother with one child in the car and the other one a few yards away in the school. I thought in my mind, should I have Brock get down on the floorboard, or would that just scare him even more? We were only 10 to 15 yards from what was happening, and I know how quickly things change. All it takes is one movement. All it takes is one weapon to be fired. Having grown up with a father in law enforcement, I know all too well everything that these individuals face when they go to work each day. Are those the same kind of feelings and concerns that I should have as I send my child to school? Now again, I say I speak to you from the heart. I speak concerning all of the students at Falling Branch. I speak out especially for those whose parents do not advocate for them. There are many parents who are not here that you will not see. For these students, for those students, the school is one safe environment that they do have. Do we not want it to continue to be that one safe place? Some of these students, they see abuse, they see drug and alcohol use, they see guns, and many other immoral acts when they go home. It's my hope that we can provide the safe haven for them at school. We want our children to have the chance to be children without having to face adult concerns and realities. And I say our children because aren't they really our children? They are the children of Montgomery County. I know that it takes time to make things happen, but I also know that with enough push and just the right persuasion, things can get done faster. We come from a community where we know tragedy all too well. We know the pain and heartache that comes after a tragedy like that at Virginia Tech. We know that we may not have time to wait for change to be made. The time is now. We need to move things forward. Perhaps if we would elicit help from Virginia Tech in sharing their story, and perhaps noticing the needs for this park and ride to be moved for the safety of our students, we might have better success. We need to reach out to anyone around us who might be willing and able to help in our efforts. I am not satisfied or content in just waiting and saying it takes time. We still need to be actively thinking of what we can do. We don't want tragedy. I'm not against the park and ride. I'm simply against its location. So I say let's find another one. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Tobias.
Good evening and thank you very much. My name is Lynette Tobias. I live at 1695 Craigs Mountain Road, and I'm here to support the abandonment of Elliott Creek section that we're talking about tonight. I have lived on that road since 1987 and ridden my horse through that particular section that you saw, and that's about the only way you can get through that. As far as I know, for the last 20 years, there's no way for emergency vehicles to go through there. There's really no need for it, and it's would be extremely expensive to get that road back up to par. I think, as we've said here tonight, our money would be better spent elsewhere. It's a dangerous road, and I just wanted to be here in support of that closure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jennifer Hatcher.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Hatcher. I live at 460 Dogwood Lane here in Christiansburg. First, I want to say thank you for pledging your support in relocating the Falling Branch Park and Ride. Several of you have personally assured me that you are committed to seeing the park and ride moved. I am the mom of 3 Falling Branch Elementary School students, and we parents, as you have heard tonight, are very concerned about the amount of time that this process is taking. The park and ride patrons continue to trespass onto school grounds on a regular basis. Each incident of trespassing represents a danger and a threat to our children and the faculty and staff of Falling Branch. They ignore the signs completely. VDOT and the county have put up pretty large signs, and these park and ride patrons clearly have no regard for following rules. So how much longer is it going to be until they show that they don't follow any rules and they come on our school property and hurt our children? If a tragedy occurs, this Board of Supervisors and VDOT would immediately move that parking ride. I have no doubt. There would be no more waiting on a 6-year plan. There would be no more excuses about how these things take time. The parking ride would be closed until Montgomery County and VDOT could find a more suitable location. I am appalled as a mom that it seems that it's going to take a tragedy before the park and ride gets moved. I'm asking you, I'm begging you to be more aggressive, to be more assertive, to work with VDOT to relocate this park and ride before something terrible happens. Too often, we see parents standing before local, state, and national governments and standing before the media wondering what could have been done differently to prevent a school shooting or a school tragedy. This is your opportunity to do the beforehand stuff. You have an opportunity now to do something differently so that a tragedy doesn't occur, so that we're not standing before you next time asking, why didn't we do something sooner? So, thank you.
Thank you. That is all the names that I have signed up, but if it's anyone in the audience that did not get an opportunity to sign up, they can use their 5 minutes at this time, and please come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, board members. My name is Susan Gray. I reside at 3000 Sugar Grove Road in Christiansburg, Virginia. I have owned the 100 acres of land that we have in Sugar Grove since December of 1986, more than 27 years. The Sugar Grove community, when I first moved down there, was a very pleasant, friendly place to live. The nature of the grove has changed. Ms. Karen Witt speaks the truth to you all here tonight. There are no hidden agendas by the proponents of this request to close that road. The road is dangerous. Often those traveling down that 1.2 mile segment of road that's been closed since the late 1970s are up to no good. Evidence of that has been presented in the past by Ms. Witt with the evidence of the flotsam, trash, clothes, condoms left at the end of that road. The road is in such disrepair, it's going to be impossible to travel. The cost of opening that road would be enormous, which have been brought to the board's attention. And as we see, there are so many other social and service area issues that need to be funded in Montgomery County. I too am a charter member of the Elliott's Creek Sugar Grove Conservancy. I was instrumental in getting that incorporated by the kindness of one of our local attorneys who is environmentally conscious. I myself was a victim of some flooding down in Sugar Grove in January of 2013. Part of the access to our home was destroyed by nature. It got some help from unnatural sources. My concern is many of the opponents of this closure, it's quite ironic that their major concern, one of their major concerns is access to fire and rescue. Access to fire and rescue to my primary residence and my home was not available at all. I had to leave my home. I had to walk in and out. So I just think it's ironic that such importance is placed on access to fire and rescue, but only for, you know, people that, I don't know, whatever you want to think of that. I'd also be interested to find out what the addresses are of the people who signed these petitions. Where do they live? What's their axe to grind in this? Please consider the Witt's request. It's for the greater good. I think you will think about that when you deliberate about this, and I thank you so much this evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Yeah, please.
I didn't sign in, Mr. Brown, because I wanted you to have to pronounce my name.
Bennett Teets.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
My name is Bennett Teets. I live at 3014 Lancaster Drive in Blacksburg. And I only wanted to say here tonight that I appreciate Mr. Meadows' contribution of a proposed budget that didn't include taxes. And I trust that the commission can meet all of its important financial requirements without increasing taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this lady is... Okay, Charlie, come on up, and then ma'am, you can be next. Okay.
That's kind of good. I've been here in about 5 or 6 years, so some of you I know, and the two ladies there that keep the school budget pumping. I know them real well, Mr. Brown.
Excuse me, could you excuse me? Okay, you state that. Go ahead.
Charlie Bowles from Roanoke, Virginia. I live in Camp Carriesburg Road, and after seeing their road, I'm wondering if I should even complain about mine. VDOT is not going to do anything that they don't have to do. They have a woman that sits over there all day long. She doesn't even have a telephone. When you dial 382-7200, you get Richmond, Virginia. then it goes to Salem, then it goes to VDOT in Christiansburg. Mr. Clark is coming in here feeding y'all the same line of bull he was 10 years ago. He is not going to do anything unless they have to. My road has been tore up for 2 years. I was in the ditches today cleaning them out myself. That's why I got shorts on and mud on my toes. Because they're not going to do anything. Barry's looking at me like, oh, you're just crazy. But they're not going to do anything, and you guys need to go over there and ask Mr. Clark why that woman cannot answer a telephone that she's paid to answer all day long. All she can do is write little notes, put them on people's doors. That doesn't do much good. The teachers are here, you know. I was one of the few people that spoke against the Falling Branch parking lot. And everybody laughed. Oh, Charlie, we need it, you know. And Mr. Powers, he wanted to put a 10-foot pathway from the parking lot out to Dish Network so that people could park there and walk. And I said, you'll have every pervert in Montgomery County out there watching them kids. And he laughed. I didn't think it was very funny myself, but he laughed. We got a lot of other problems. Out in Roanoke, got Mr. King there. I helped get Mr. King elected because I worked for the other man. I worked for Mr. Miller. And Jim lost by 800 votes, and I probably took him away from him because he didn't do anything for Reiner while he was here. He got hooked up with people from Blacksburg. Mr. Brown was up there in this meeting saying what a good man he was and everything. Well, Jim didn't do anything for the public of Reiner, the poor people. I wrote everything on brown paper. You know why? Because I'm poor. I wrote it on a paper bag. My mother pays $1,300 every 6 months in taxes. These school teachers, if they don't like it here, then move. Go to Norfolk. Go to Salem. I told them that before. I'd give them the first tank of gas to go to Salem. To me, complaining about what you're making, you know, that's just BS. I mean, you don't need to complain about something when you're getting paid. I'm on disability now. I get $500 a month to live on. Maybe they'd like that. I don't understand. We're talking about the property taxes, you know. The older people that don't have children are paying a fortune. And they go, well, told my mom, sell some land. Well, if she puts money in the bank, she's still at a higher income rate. She can't get any help. And Virginia Tech doesn't pay any taxes. Now, I've said this before 1,000 times, and everybody goes, oh. Every time they pull land out of the county's pocket, that's money you could be taxing. Last year, they got $247 million donated to them. You know, you got this 911 center up here. Don't need it. Should have handed Tommy the keys and said, there it is. Make it a 911 center. You guys spent $8 million or $7 million on that building, and he's worried about $30,000 for meth labs. Should have took it out of the 911 center. Instead of complaining on TV. They got new police cars, 5 of them. Got those, no problem. Needed them. Mary told me in the grocery store parking lot a couple weeks ago, people need these things. They don't need them, Mary. I said, they took Morville up there and tried him in a little courtroom up there in Abington. You couldn't get 1,000 people in the courtroom. Didn't have a problem. But you just keep spending our money, and I'm going to be back every week. I'm going to burn a hole in it because you guys got to do better.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. Barbara Falls Jones is my name. I live at 202 Summit Drive in Pearisburg, Virginia. However, I lived in Montgomery County for 40 years. My children went to Montgomery County schools. I see Miss Biggs laughing, and Miss Perkins, you had my son as well. I still own some property here in Montgomery County. I have a vested interest. I have grandchildren going to Falling Branch, and I'm here because of them. My daughter just spoke to you a few minutes ago, and I know what she went through on that afternoon sitting there watching the law enforcement officers. I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. My husband was in law enforcement for 30 years, so I know what they go through on a day-to-day basis. I have lived with it. I know what it's like. But as a teacher going into Falling Branch, I can't imagine what they feel on a day-to-day. When you all taught school years ago, when Chief Brown, when your children went to school, that our children went to school together, it was a safe environment.
That's right.
We didn't have to worry. But since that afternoon, and my daughter told me what she experienced, every time the TV's on, I'm here as a grandparent, by the way, in case I didn't put that out there, but every time a news flash goes across the TV, I run to the TV. The first thing I think of is Falling Branch. I mean, we live in that type of society today. We don't want tragedies to happen, but they do happen. Can we prevent them? We can try. We can do all that we can to prevent them. And I think in this situation that we need to put Falling Branch, the park and ride, deal with it as I think it was Ms. Blevins said, with an urgency. Don't put it on the back burners. I appeal to you, please don't put it on the back burner. I will just leave this with you. I enjoy traveling, and I travel pretty extensively throughout the U.S. And when people ask me where I'm from, and I tell them, and I say Southwest Virginia, the first response I get is Virginia Tech. Oh yes, that was horrible. We don't want Christiansburg, Virginia to be that way. I don't want, when I travel, for people to say, oh yes, we heard of a tragedy. We heard what happened to Christiansburg. I beg of you to please put this on the front burner and not the back burner. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Melissa Smith, and I live at 1180 Cedar Street, Christiansburg, Virginia. I'm a parent of 2 students at Falling Branch Elementary, and I will have a third starting kindergarten in the fall. As you've heard, we are concerned. We know, we appreciate your support. We appreciate what you have told us. I would suggest, as a first step, why can we not stop the bus immediately? Why can VDOT not say to Megabus, Smartway, any buses starting tomorrow, this is no longer a bus stop? The commuter lot, we want moved. We want it all moved. But as to start with, the problem are the patrons who are getting dropped off at from one bus and then have to wait for hours and hours. Can you hear me?
If you'll talk over top of it, it won't do that.
Is that better?
That's good.
Okay, sorry. The problem is the patrons have no place to go. If it was in a more business setting on Roanoke Street where there's commercial businesses around where they could go in and spend a few hours, I'm sure they would be happier as patrons of the park and ride, and it would alleviate the need for them to come into our school. Why can we not say this is no longer a bus stop, and until we get the commuter lot totally moved, it is just those riding up to Roanoke, getting in their car, waiting, carpooling, going up to Roanoke. Those are not the immediate danger to our children. Every day we send our kids to school, we are literally fearing as we send that anytime the number, I know the automated number that calls with any announcements from Montgomery County, I'm afraid it is going to be that call. I'm afraid of what has happened in this country, and we are literally 50 feet away from that happening with the park and ride being so close to our school. As it has been winter time, I have been grateful my kids have not been outside. I am grateful it was a cold day on February 10th
that my kids were not outside, as that fugitive could have done anything at any point. If children were outside, there's no stopping it. Please, please, please help us. We are afraid. We don't know what else to do. We are doing everything we can. We appreciate your support, and please keep this top priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Jenny McGraw. I live at 415 Christmas Street in Christiansburg. I am an aunt of 2 students that go to Falling Branch Elementary. I'm also a student teacher from Radford University in Montgomery County right now. I will graduate in May with my master's degree, and I will be a teacher. As an aunt, a concerned aunt, and as a future teacher, I want to add my voice to those who have already spoken about moving the park and ride from Falling Branch. It is not safe, and it needs to be moved. I, as a future teacher, speaking for all of them and for all the students at Falling Branch Elementary and everywhere, we need to put them as our #1 priority. Like it has been spoken before, these students can't speak for themselves, so I'm here on behalf of them and just beg of you to move it as soon as possible. And do whatever needs to be done as soon as possible. It needs to be done now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, going once, twice, it's gone. So at this, okay.
Can we take a break before we
I'm going to get to that. The public address session is closed, and I'm going to ask my fellow board members, do they need 5 minutes?
5 minutes, please.
Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you for your patience with us. But we're getting kind of elderly up here, and we have to take a break every now and then. You know.
What?
Oh, I'm talking about me. I'm
Put my thing in the ear just
Yeah.
about the time you said that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Chris, Matt,
Young
and
man.
I. Yes, that's, okay, the next thing on our agenda is consent agenda. So moved. Have a motion and a second. One item on there that I'd like to mention, and just as for just the public's information, there's $800,000 on the consent agenda to pay for additional costs at the regional jail, because it seems like we hold a record down there with having the most inmates in that jail. And I just looked at my last report from our Roanoke County has 172 prisons, and Montgomery County has 272. So we're the leaders there, and it could be good on one side and bad on the other. Good on one side because the bad guys are in jail, bad guys and girls are in jail. And on the bad side, the taxpayers have to pick up the cost for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further comment. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next section is to go into work session. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into work session for the purpose of discussing the following: the former Prices Fork School proposed rezoning, and also the request to abandon Elliott Creek Road. And we'll start off with the Prices Fork.
Need a motion and a second.
Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And we're in work session.
Mr. Chair, first item is the former Prices Fork Elementary School proposed rezoning. And I'm going to recognize Steve Simonis and Joe Fortier to come forward. These folks are working with the county to develop a plan of rezoning for the property. They have submitted that plan of rezoning. Marty, do you want to add any comments as far as the rezonings moving forward? I believe Steve is bringing up the site plan.
While you bring that up, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the board and the county for working with us on this project.
both Craig and Marty in the planning department. We are very excited. We are long-term residents of Montgomery County, and our development company has managed to save old buildings in downtowns all across the New River Valley, some in Radford, one in Blacksburg, even Narrows, but we've never had a chance to do one in the actual county in which we live. So we are very pleased that we have this opportunity to work with you folks. You know, the old Price's Fork Elementary School is historic, and it's a good building in a good spot, and we think that it will fit very well with the type of development we do, which is taking these old buildings that are sitting there vacant and then repurposing them so that they become vital parts of the community. So thank you all for this time. My prepared remarks just got finished. Craig had asked us to come and address any questions that you may have. We have just submitted the rezoning application that is necessary for us to move forward on the closing of the property. We have the property under contract, and we are working with the county. We are jointly submitting this for your consideration. And so there will be public hearings, and we've already begun with a lot of community outreach. Starting with, we have met with the citizens of the area just to brief them of where we are. And then we've also convened an advisory committee that consists of members of the farmers market and farming community, that consists of the community on aging, the local housing for low to moderate income housing, and the livability initiative. So we see this as a robust community involvement, development. We live here, and so we want, when we get done with this, people to be proud of it. I'm sure there will be some issues along the way that will come up during the community process, but we look forward to doing a good job with an appropriately sized and placed development.
One thing to add in, along with the rezoning request, there's a special use permit application that's filed with this for the senior housing and the farm market that Joe just brought up. So just wanted to make sure that was part of the public record, that it is a joint application of the rezoning and a special use permit.
And we also, right now, we are working on the main building, extending the historic district, doing a certified historic renovation, which we've got over $3 million budgeted right now to fix up the old middle school on the property, elementary school on the property, excuse me. And we're looking at senior housing. We don't know how many units we can fit in, but right now we're targeting 18 to 22 in the old building, plus 2 businesses. Right now we are targeting a daycare and the other space for a community-based food, community kitchen business that we're working with the farmers market, that there's a lot of interest in Montgomery County to showcase local foods and people who prepare local food. So that's our general concept for the front. For the back, we have asked for RM1 rezoning, and really what it is placeholder, which will allow us to do a good job of putting together a development that is, we like to do sustainable development and to try to do a nice job. We don't actually have the proposal for the back as part of the rezoning. That is dictated by the time schedule, in part worked out jointly with the county to be able to close now with the zoning that justifies the purchase price in place, but yet knowing that we still have a lot of details and not asking the county to approve a half-baked plan because it was, we didn't take the time to do it well. I do have some news today. I was just informed that this project, Elizabeth Willis over at the Blacksburg Housing Home Loan Program, who is supporting this project, submitted this project, and we were selected from projects all around the country by the Sustainable Cities Design Symposium to be one of 2 projects that they're doing this year. So we're going up to DC in May, and we have a 3-day design charrette that is all about trying to make this a more sustainable development. So we were very, very pleased to be able to do that, and they really, really liked the idea of what we're trying to do here. So anyway, that's it. Steve? Questions?
Marty or Derry, can you speak to the time frame for the rezoning application just briefly, how the process will work?
The Planning Commission will do a site visit on Wednesday evening, and then the public hearings will be held in April. Forgive me, I can't recall the
It's
date,
okay.
but it's the second Wednesday in April for the Planning Commission, the fourth Monday for the Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay, great. I just wanted everybody to know it was moving right along.
Are there any questions? We have up here, Steve has worked up a site plan. This is what, a preliminary site plan that was submitted with the application. I don't know, it might be too early. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at it. Yes, sir.
I was looking, see if any of the board members have any questions.
Go ahead. I have one, but you can go ahead.
Okay. It might be a little bit too early for you to answer this, but the back section, would these be owner-occupied or rentals?
I would say that right now, it's most likely that it would be a mix. We are talking with some co-housing groups, some senior co-housing groups. I don't know the answer for certain to your question. Yeah.
I'm just curious, what's your sense? I mean, right now in the back half, there's a couple of ball fields back there. Do you have any sense that the county might be able to continue to use those ball fields? I mean, is that going to stay kind of the same? I mean, I see almost all the development, of course, is going to be in the front half initially.
Actually, the back right now we're planning to develop into housing, and that was our original proposal to the county had the back being worked for community use. It was requested to us that we go back and consider developing the back to try to put more densified development on there. And so we did that. So right now, actually, the back is being called for development. So there won't be ball fields. We will, however, we are going to try to incorporate things like if we can have a walking trail around the exterior, if we can connect to any of the other initiatives of the walking trails, we've got that in our proposal. So we'll do what we can. We have both been requested and agreed to develop the back.
No, I understand that. Perhaps my question was unclear. Is that, and perhaps I'm unclear on the timeline. Is that it's my understanding that the front half here is going to be developed first?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So while that is happening, what is going to be? Are you going to be simultaneously developing the back half? Or
No, there will be a period of actually several years, and we do not have plans for the back. So if there is, we're getting into an area where I don't know the ramifications of, but I coached soccer on that field for the youth league 4 years, and my son and daughter both played on it. So I'm not opposed to having that, and maybe I know that the adult league in Blacksburg and Christiansburg has a heck of a time finding ball fields to play on. It's possible that we could place that into construction use, and we're certainly amenable to it if someone is willing to maintain it and deal with the parking and liability issues. So
that's something perhaps.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And one thing we're trying to do with this first phase, you can see the parking lots in the back. There's a mobile unit that sits right here. You see the screen right there. This is the basketball court. So the hope is we're going to minimize our impervious area and maximize green space out here. So as phase one is developed, the thought is this part of the building back here could be potentially part of the daycare. So all this parking back here in the back during those either weeknights or weekends, Matt, as you brought up, with any type of the recreational leagues, that there could be parking back here that could be used as well.
Another thing too that I want to ask is that I don't know how much you're going to take up in the front or the back, but for years, and I think about 90 years, they've had the Prices Fork Fair. They're across the street at the Grange. Would there be any opportunities, if they continue the fair, to be able to use some of the parking over and about the area where you're going to develop?
I think that there is, and particularly until we get the buildings placed in service, I don't have any issues with them parking. Once the building is placed in service, it will depend on the nature of the businesses that we recruit there, because our first obligation will have to be to provide, good and adequate parking for the residents and those. To the extent that we have extra space, either before it's developed because no one's in it yet, or after it's developed, we'd be happy to share.
Okay. Matt?
Just also, you just mentioned that you might be thinking about putting the daycare in the back of the facility, and of course, you're not really sure necessarily where it might go. One of the concerns right there with that building is that it's relatively narrow on the side to kind of get around, and especially if you have relatively high traffic at certain parts of the day trying to get around there. I mean, what are your thoughts on trying to manage that traffic flow?
Yeah, one of the limitations of the property is the actual distance between the side of the building and the next property over. We have, how many feet do we have there, Steve, if we take that?
Well, with the new layout that you're seeing up on the screen, we have adjusted the parking so you're getting drive aisles to county standards. So there are currently some perpendicular spaces right up here where you see these two parallel. We've shifted the handicap spaces over to this green space right here and got rid of those other perpendicular spaces. So we're working on the 20 to 24 foot drive aisles that are standard in the county.
Okay.
We're also going to see if, Steve, I don't know if you can show them, we're thinking of having the drop off not being in the drive aisle. So where it's narrows, it actually opens up to where where the kindergarten was before. It opens up, and there's some areas for some pull-off areas that would be much safer for the parents to pick up. Obviously there's going to have to be some monitoring where the kids aren't just let run free, but we'll put in speed bumps and whatever we can to increase the safety of it. So.
I just wanted to add one last thing. I want to thank Joe and Steve both for their efforts. As we've worked through this, we've hit a couple of bumps along the way, but either by phone or email or a couple of times in the office, Marty and I and Steve and Joe have sat down and talked through things, and you guys have been a pleasure to work with. We look forward to seeing a really nice project out there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well, I guess the next item on our work session is the Elliott Creek Road issue.
And Mr. Chair, I'll send one down each side. I've got some, Derry's going to put up some maps for you to see for discussion. I've also, thanks to Derry, got a couple of printouts if you want to look at them. Just, they'll be on the screen too. So.
I thought there was a couple of maps.
They're just to share. We didn't print out 7, just in case somebody. It's on the screen too, but I don't know if anybody wanted to have a hard copy to look at as well as the screen.
Okay. Just for informational purposes, I'm sure most of you all have seen this, Mr. Chair and board members, but there may be some folks in the audience that haven't. So we'll try to orient folks about where this property is that you've heard about so much tonight. And this is to deal with Elliott Creek Road, the intent to abandon the right-of-way that you've heard about. This area here shown in yellow is the town of Christiansburg boundary, and the area in question is shown in this red here. And let me go back and then kind of orient you here. The access could be from off Pilot Road here, shown here, to Elliott Creek Road here at Rogers. And you can see it follows this line right down through here. This is Elliott Creek Road and comes right on down. And then this is a portion of Elliott Creek Road as well, Route 675. Now, joining the western side of the abandonment area here, there are several other roads that connect. One is Craig's Mountain Road, Route 674. It comes right through here, and actually there's an intersection there. And then you heard about Sugar Grove Road, which is this little area in here. And then you might have heard a little bit about Bow Hill Road, which is also 674 in this area. So this section about right here, you can see it better on another map, is the area that was abandoned years ago in 1979. Not abandoned, but the maintenance was discontinued. So it's right here in this area. So then if you get across that creek, there's the abandoned area connected to a private section of Split Rail Road, and then here is the state maintained area of Split Rail, which is 675, This is Mount Pleasant Road that travels right back up the mountain to Christiansburg. And then we have Mount Pleasant Road continues this way and goes to Allegheny Springs. Heard some discussion about that. And then this little road here is Lavender Road, and I don't think I heard anybody speak of that. But anyway, this is kind of the layout of the area so that you have a feel for that. I'll go to another map now that will show the topography, and excuse me, not the topography, but the aerial photograph. This is zoomed in now, much more from the previous map, and this yellow road now is the area that's requested to be abandoned. This big piece of property here, if you can see my mouse moving, and this piece here as well belongs to the Whits, and you can see that either side of that is their farm, as she was talking earlier this evening. Okay, this is basically the same map with the aerial photography removed so that you can see the roads better. If you need that for discussion, you should have that in your packet, but if you need that this evening, we can flip back through these maps. And there's two aerial photographs. One gives the property owners' names, and one adds the addresses if you're interested in who was speaking about what and where they live in relationship to the request. And then we also have here this evening the survey plat. It was dated April 22nd, 1996. That shows the right-of-way going through these two big parcels here, and the indication on the survey is right here is the end of state maintenance. So it was this section that was previously discontinued for the maintenance by VDOT. Excuse me, this area right here. Okay, so to recap, in June 1979, the Board of Supervisors had a resolution to request VDOT to discontinue the maintenance of 4/10 of a mile of the Elliott Creek Road, and it's the easternmost portion of the road. In December of that same year, the Highway and Transportation Commission confirmed the discontinuance of that 4/10 mile. Also, as a reminder, in November 1989, the Board of Supervisors denied a request very similar to this to abandon this same section of road. Planning staff was asked to take a look at the petition that was presented the last time you all met. I counted about 83 or 4 names on the list, and the staff went through and took a look at who lived in the proximity of Elliott Creek Road, and that ended up to be 46 folks signing the petition lived in that area, and those 46 represented 26 addresses in that area. Others were addresses that were not anywhere close to Elliott Road. We were asked to take a look at the crash data by the Sheriff's Office, and we looked at that from 2008 to 2014. There were 10 calls. This crash data was not location specific, but they did have notes enough to know that there were 2 at the intersection of Elliott Creek Road and 2 at Craig's Mountain Road. Now, the VDOT crash data was from the same time period, and they had the 2 at the intersection of Elliott Creek Road and Craig's Mountain Road. Now, what we don't have is anything at all that ties any of these crashes to the area along the Swit Farm, or the area that's being requested to abandon the right-of-way there. So that's all the data that I have, and I have limited access to, limited information, but I'll be glad to try to flip back through the maps or go over something there if you have a question for me.
Questions? Mr. Tuck?
I just have one. I believe that there was an indication that there was a wreck, but it was back before your data. I believe it was in the 90s, in which one individual ended up being a quadriplegic as a result of an accident on this road.
Okay, I heard some comment to that respect. So
But
that
would
was,
have been predated.
so that was on this area that to be abandoned?
That was my understanding from the speaker that went before, in regards, I believe they referenced to Fred Alderman's son in the 90s, and I wasn't certain as to the speaker's date of when that occurred. So that would have taken place before your research?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments for Derry?
I just like to ask kind of a question, I guess, because if folks are indeed down there doing things that they shouldn't be doing, such as drinking and partying and this type of thing, and they had a wreck coming out, what are the chances that they'd want to call the police down there? And there's somebody was deadly ill. And that just kind of hit me as, you know, do we really have a picture? And I don't know that.
I'm not sure if I understood your question. What were the chances that they would want to call law enforcement?
If you were down there, let's say you were down there and you got about half drunk, or maybe 3/4 or full, and you started home and you had a wreck coming out of there, what are the chances of you saying, hey, we better get the sheriff down here? You know, that was kind of the question. I just...
Gary, as your attorney, I would advise you not to call the authorities if you're happy.
If you've been drinking. Well, you know, I guess it comes down to how much do you want to live, or is your life in danger?
Well, you know, nobody might not even got hurt. It just might have run off the bank, you know.
You know, as someone who has first-hand experience, I have a sibling that 27 years ago, he was drinking and driving. Thank goodness he was alone. And he was headed home and ran out of the road and hit a telephone pole and flipped the car upside down. And he would have been grateful if somebody would have come along and called law enforcement, because he laid there for about 5 or 6 hours and he's paralyzed. So, you know, I think when that happens, they're not going to worry about that part if the life endangerment is
well, I expect so if life endangerment. That's very true.
You know, just for raising ruckus, they probably don't want to call anybody in for help.
That's right. They probably called a buddy with the big 4-wheel drive to come down and pull them out, you know, something like that. Okay, Matt.
I know from what Ms. Witt mentioned, at least it's my understanding that they've called the Sheriff's Department out there several times in the past. Do we have any information from the Sheriff's Office about their access? I mean, have they had trouble navigating that road? So, I mean, from what I understand, I wasn't one of the ones that went out there, but I've heard from various people that it is indeed very narrow. And I'm wondering if like a police cruiser or something like that would have trouble navigating that road. Or if the Sheriff's Department has even mentioned, maybe they haven't found it a problem, but maybe they have. So do we have any information from them about this? I assume they've been down that road.
I don't think we have that.
Okay.
Well, I got a question. I think we asked to have a fire and rescue and public safety information when we were at agenda prep. So are we going to get any of that as in regards to their...
Well, that...
One of the things that, in trying to make decisions, I contacted Neil Turner, and I think that he initially kind of went out and may have been looking at it from a different perspective with the first email I got from him. But after I went out there, I asked him specifically about that. The boulder being in the road, the narrowness of it, the inability, in my opinion, to be able to get an ambulance in and out if you meet traffic, those type of things. And an ambulance tends to be wider than my pickup truck. And at one point in time, I think I had inches from the boulder to the cliff, and it's not a 60-foot drop, but it's 30 feet, enough to roll my truck. And Neil is going to try to get back with us from my communications, going out there to give us a better idea from a public safety standpoint in regards to the road.
Well,
Will Neil communicate with the sheriff's office specifically? I mean, my understanding, Neil will deal with fire and rescue, but I want to know from the sheriff's office as well.
I didn't ask him, but I'm sure that we could.
Can certainly
add
get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you go down the road, the two houses that I saw on the road are owned by the Whits. And the only other house I saw that was across the creek had a different landowner, but a different way to get there. So I guess, like all of these people that, live in that area, to get to their house, if you had an illness, an accident, a fire, a break-in, are you basically going to get to their houses from a different way? In other words, are those people going to really be using that road to get to anyone's houses besides the two that the Whits own on that road? I think that was my question.
That's the only houses there.
I know. But if you haven't been out there, it might be because you hear it like, well, you need access. Well, you need to know what's there and what isn't there, I guess.
There's two addresses there on the county map.
I think if I was the sheriff, I wouldn't want to send a deputy down that road, worry about him tearing up the car and hurting himself, especially down there to Ian.
And I don't know if we're discussing amongst ourselves at this point in time, but there's several. In listening to a lot of the speakers, and all due respect to the Whits, and I kind of thought about this, when they bought the property, they had an idea that there was a public easement through their property. They knew it when they bought it. And then, so I'm looking at this, and in all due respect to the Whits, as a public safety issue, versus in regards to me, what was the most compelling thing that was said to us tonight, and the things that I keep in mind is what Miss Alley said, which is they don't need a Huckleberry Trail, they've got this. And so those are the factors. But for me also, I'm thinking from a public safety perception, if fire and rescue is trying to get out there and rescue one of the Whits, and I'm out there joyriding, I'm out there enjoying the nature, are they going to be able to get to them in time? Are they going to be able to get the Whits to the hospital? And frankly, many of the opponents that spoke and have spoken previously, I don't find some of the things that they've said credible. I don't believe that anybody is using this road to commute. I don't believe that anybody's taking anybody to the hospital on this route. So from my perspective, and I know I don't speak for the board, that argument is simply doesn't hold any water any more than that creek holds water. It goes downhill. You go through that creek for 130 some feet. Do we want people to be going through that creek, maybe in high water? Maybe that in and of itself is a danger. It is clear from that cable as being as rusty, all the trees that are down on that road, that nobody's been using that road to commute or going through that. I've got a quad cab truck. I know Todd went out there. Neither one of us put our trucks in the water because I was afraid I'd get stuck. And so that's the kind of way I'm looking at things as far as public safety, and is this safe for the general public? And I consider the Whits to be part of the general public as far as the safety aspect goes.
Any other comments for Derry?
Mr. Chair, I'd just ask, I've heard the request to make sure we've got some additional information from the sheriff, and we'll consolidate all the public safety information. Is there anything else as a board that you would like for me or Derry or staff to pull together between now and when you make a final decision?
I know that Mr. Clark is here, and I know we've got the boulders, and there's a cliff there, and I'm wondering if that is stable, and if we are putting the general public at risk when we're saying that this is a public road. And I know that we have immunity, sovereign immunity, in regards to the public road, but I'm also concerned it's straight up, there's branches going into that rock, freezing, thawing, big boulder comes down, or maybe that whole hillside comes down. And so that's also, if Mr. Clark or someone with VDOT could give us an idea, and again, I hate putting you on the spot, you're not going to like me anymore. But that would be helpful before we vote.
Okay.
I think you're right.
Well, David, do you want to check on that, or do you want to respond now? Or, I mean, if you check on it and get back with us, or try to address it now? I'm glad you didn't leave.
Yeah.
I took a little break. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. I mean, you know, we got a lot of roads that have, you know, steep slopes and have issues with rock falling. This is, and we have roads of varying width too. We have some unpaved roads that are quite wide, do fairly well. We're working on one right now in Giles County, but it connects with McCoy and Montgomery County that will pave that whole way through. Even though it's on a kind of on a hillside, it's very wide. We can almost pave it as it is. Craig Creek Road didn't take a lot of work, took some, but we also have very, very narrow roads. Not all dirt roads are the same. All gravel roads, you know, unpaved roads are the same. This one is very, very narrow. It's probably always been pretty much very narrow, and maintenance has been sort of commensurate with the use it's got and the demand on it. There's not a lot of demand on that road, so we haven't spent a lot of money on it.
I think we're just talking about one rock, though, and the rock is bigger than the thing that you're standing there at.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it weighs. I have no idea about that, but, you know, just one rock. Not wanting you to go down and just push it over the bank.
It can be done. Well, I got around it a couple months ago. I know when I went down to the end. I've done it. I've been down there twice.
But if you push it down the bank, it's going to go through their fence. It's somebody who's had to build fences, so I mean, it'll have to be.
It needs to go somewhere.
We can get a loader.
Yes.
We can get or a rock breaker or something like that. But I mean, you know, if there's more demand on the road, we can change the way, you know, we maintain it. It will probably always be as wide as it is right now. It's not going to be a 20-foot wide unpaved road, or, you know, like maybe like Brush Creek Road is right now, or Yellow Sulphur Road is, which gets a lot more traffic. But there, you know, we've got the 4 counties I do. We've got a lot of unpaved roads that are about 10, 12 feet wide.
Do you have a lot of roads that go 130 feet to a creek?
Well, that one technically ends before it gets to the creek, as far as VDOT maintenance does. But there were some that, you know, we've got open fords, not 130 feet long, but there are roads with open fords.
Okay. The other aspect of things in regards to that, there doesn't seem to be a cul-de-sac. The road currently just ends at the creek.
Yeah.
And so to try to turn around, I had to put my vehicle in four-wheel drive to be able to turn it around and try not to trespass on the Witts property. And so that's also, I don't want to be encouraging people to violate the law and go onto their property and violate their property rights, because there is no cul-de-sac. It's a dead end.
Right. There's no turnaround there. There's there's usually a presumed 30-foot easement for maintaining a road. I don't know if you delve into case law a lot on this. That may not be exactly correct. The easement may be only what is there as a sort of either a traveled portion or a currently maintained portion, which would be maybe a traveled portion plus ditches. I don't know what a judge would say our easement is through there. I don't know if he would say it's 30 feet or it is what it is. It is what's there now. The prescriptive easement law is very strange. VDOT is the agent of the county in these cases. We don't own that road. Nobody owns that. Well, actually, people do own it, but there's an easement through their property. We're very similar to somebody you might hire to cut the grass here at the government building office. We work for the county to maintain a public easement. That's all there is. It's not our public easement. If VDOT were to go away, that easement would still exist as long as the county secures it. So we're maintaining the road pretty much as it was when VDOT took over the secondary system in 32. Some roads were nice and wide, some roads were, and the ones we've improved through the secondary construction program. And you all know the list of roads that we've paved through the construction program. But it's simply, I mean, the easement exists, the easement is there until the county decides it's not. VDOT is just the agent of the county to maintain it.
Okay, David, when you travel that road, on the side of the road that looks down on the cliff, you can see a little bit of like erosion on the sides of the road. And like if the rain comes, as the road goes this way, you can see a little bit in this way where it's washed off. And I thought that was Mr. Tuck, what Mr. Tuck was asking about the stability of that road with the trees on that side and the freezing and the thawing and the water running off. And if it continues to erode out, over the next 2, 3, 6, 8 years, I don't see anything there to build it back on. I mean, once it goes down the cliff, to build it back out the way it is. And when you look at it, it would be worse than the truck climbing lane trying to move the mountain
It's very
try to make it
difficult.
wide. It's
In
very
fact,
difficult.
We've got a road closed right now in Giles County because that occurred. It's way out 61 out Wolf Creek towards Bland County. There's a secondary road. It's old, I guess 61. I don't know. It's about 724 Wolf Creek Road, but a section fell away into Wolf Creek. Fortunately, there are ways to get in different on the back side of that, but it was far too expensive to fix, and couldn't move the road because of property considerations. So right now that road is closed. We just shut it off right there.
Mr. Gray.
What is the difference between what the State Highway Department did to the other section of road that's down there as compared to what, can you do the same thing to this section?
There's two processes. There's abandonment and there's discontinuance. Discontinuance is discontinuing the maintenance of the road. You're asking VDOT to no longer maintain the public easement. The public easement still exists. It's just not part of the state highway system. It's not a private road, it's still a public road, but VDOT no longer maintains it. It's just a public easement. Anyone who wants to can maintain it. You're technically not allowed to block it physically, but that's a question of enforcement and someone to decide what blocking means. I don't know. It's still open to pedestrians, to whatever part of the general public wants to use it. And that's what's happened in that section in the middle. It was discontinued. I don't believe it was abandoned.
When's the last time VDOT actually did any kind of maintenance on the part?
I'm not sure. I thought we moved that rock, so I'm not. I'd asked them before. I don't know if they all. For instance, in this last snow, I don't know if we did any snow removal on that portion of the road or not.
There was one comment made to me that VDOT did not remove the snow.
How would you even remove it?
I wouldn't take no truck down it.
There are a lot of, our superintendents are fairly familiar with the people they serve, and there are roads that, through agreements with property owners, although we technically are supposed to maintain, they've said, you don't have to bother with this or whatever. If we get requests, we'll certainly maintain it, but we've also got public roads that, if we can spend our time working on roads that people really want us to maintain, we put the others on the very bottom of the list to get to them, often don't.
I've never represented anybody for criminally messing with the road, but one of the speakers tonight mentioned that it would be it's a misdemeanor for if I went to go out and replace a culvert and did it on my own on a VDOT road. Is that in fact a crime?
I'm not sure what the legal definition would be, although any work done on VDOT right-of-way requires a permit. This being a prescriptive easement, most of our policies extend to those roads we maintain. So any work done technically would require a permit.
So is that an expensive process to go through getting a permit?
No, we do no cost permits. Frequently.
Mr. McMahon, would you like to add anything? Thank you, David. Any other discussion, or we need to go to work session among ourselves? Okay, need a motion to go to work session.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second, and would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Do we have an addendum, Mr. Meadows? No, sir. No addendum, so we'll move right on to new business. And subject A, refer to the Planning Commission request to amend the zoning ordinance for the manufacturing light district. Is that you? Or who is it?
I'll take it if you want any open remarks.
Okay.
The county received a request from a property owner for the county to consider amending the manufacturing light district to allow a contractor's service establishment. Currently, that's allowed in the manufacturing district, but for some reason it's not allowed in the manufacturing light district as allowable use. And so he's requesting that the board consider that request. Planning department is in agreement with the request. They have no problem. They really couldn't think of a reason why it should not be in that district. And so they support at least the board referring this to the Planning Commission to let them go through the process of reviewing the request and then coming back with a recommendation like they always do with zoning changes. So what our code allows is that the Board of Supervisors can initiate requests, or citizens can ask the Board of Supervisors to then initiate a request, and this is what we're dealing with here. So the board will either say yay or nay on the request to at least let the Planning Commission make a recommendation on it. Planning staff recommends that you go ahead and refer it.
So just to clarify, what we're doing right now is we're voting on a request to just ask the Planning Commission to consider this.
Yeah. And so what they'll do is they'll advertise it, they'll study it, come back with either yay or nay, or maybe some type of amended version of it, and then bring it back for your review.
Okay, I guess we need to take a vote and a motion to... Okay, go ahead.
I want to make sure this is not the case in which I had a conflict, correct?
No.
Okay, and I just, because sometimes corporations and I don't know all the names of the corporations. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. That I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay, we need I guess a motion to refer it.
Motion.
He's got a motion?
Second.
And a second. No further discussion to refer this to the Planning Commission. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject B, fiscal year 2009 revenue sharing project, Allegheny Springs Road, I guess it's State Route 637, bridge replacement, transfer funds to fiscal year 2014 revenue sharing project, Blue Springs Road, State Route 613.
Mr. Chair, this is when we complete revenue sharing projects and they have balances still available, as we do in this case, we ask the board to roll those forward into current projects. It allows a little more work to be done if needed, and then if that project is completed, and we just continue to roll the money forward. In this case, the Allegheny Springs Bridge Replacement Project closed out with $32,342, of which is half state, half local. Blue Springs Road is next on the list for revenue sharing work, and we're just asking that money be rolled forward into the Blue Springs Road project.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
No.
Mr. 7
No.
ayes.
Yeah.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Okay, I think it's subject C. Fiscal year 2010 revenue sharing project, Willis Hollow Road, State Route 609, transfer of funds to fiscal year 2014 revenue sharing project, Bush Creek Road, State Route 617.
Again, this is a similar project. The fiscal year 10 revenue sharing project on Willis Hollow Road is completed. There was a remaining balance on that project of $138,570, again, half state, half local. We have a fiscal year 14 revenue sharing project on Brush Creek Road, and we're just asking if that money be rolled forward into that project.
Yeah, that's a question.
Good question.
Yeah, and the reason, I was against the last one, I'll be against this one. Both of those have come out of leftover funds in my district. And the last, about 6-8 months ago, we had another one that took out $28,000 that was left over out of my district. And we've gotten to the point here to where that, that was supposedly revenue sharing money that I would have to do things in my district. And we've run out now over $100,000 worth of matching funds we'd have to, and I could do some kind of a project. Just don't like to see it taken away.
Were those projects completed? The ones that were voted on? The Willis Hollow and the Allegheny Springs?
Yes.
Okay.
They're not completed to where they now got to be. They were completed for where they said they stopped at. There's
the approved projects though were completed.
Mostly.
Okay, cool. Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second? Have a motion and a second. And if it's no discussion, we'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
No.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 no.
Subject D, proclamation Take Back Tonight rally in March. This is a proclamation that supports that. And I don't know how many years that the board has passed a proclamation.
For a long time.
I'm thinking about 27, 28, or maybe 30. I don't know.
Since
But-
it first started,
Yeah.
I think.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it says the 25th annual.
Yeah.
Now, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye. Hey, Vicki. Okay.
Are we going to send them a copy of this?
Yeah, we always send them.
Yeah, we
a
always
signed
send them a copy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Now we move on to the county attorney's report.
No report, Mr. Chair.
County administrator's report. And before you get started, if you have those dates for the public's information that we're going to have
I do.
meetings.
Yes, I can do that. I can do that.
We can get it, keep as much information
You
out
scared
to
me
the
for a
public.
minute because I didn't bring them with me, but they're
Well,
here.
I'll just slip this piece of paper to you, Yeah.
I've got them. Just a couple of things real briefly. First off, the PDC annual dinner is this Wednesday night in Radford, and I'll be attending, and I haven't even had a chance. Are you going to be there as well, as far as you know? Okay, well, I'll give regrets if you're not. But that's Wednesday night in Radford at the new building at Radford University. Friday, we'll be meeting with 4 firms during the day. We are taking our next step with our tourism efforts and working on developing a branding initiative for the county and the 2 towns, which is something we talked about when the group was formed. So we'll be meeting with 4 groups on Friday for that.
This week? This week?
Yes, ma'am, all day Friday. And then we should also be receiving, and they may be presented Wednesday night, the final documents from the PDC's Livability Initiative are being published and should be available in the next week or so, and I'll certainly share those hard copies for those who want it, electronically for those who would like to receive it that way. And as the chair mentioned, I'd just like to briefly run through the upcoming meetings with the board. We have a meeting next Monday, the 17th. That is a special budget work session to discuss the budget and discussion of setting an advertised tax rate. That is the 17th at 7 o'clock. That one's here. Then the following Monday, of course, is a regular board meeting. and that begins at 7:15. That's also here. The next, we'll probably, yes, sir. At 7:15 is the regular meeting. Closed meeting will start before that. We also have a community conversations meeting on Tuesday, March 25th at 7 o'clock, and that one is at Christiansburg High School in the Commons area. We have a public hearing on the advertised tax rate and advertised fiscal year 15 budget on Thursday, excuse me, April 3rd at 7 o'clock. That will be here in this room. Community conversations meeting at Margaret Beeks Elementary School in the Annex on Tuesday, April 8th at 7 o'clock p.m. And then a regular board meeting on Monday, April 14th. The regular session of that begins at 7:15, and if we get through all the questions and comments and concerns regarding the budget, hopefully the board will be ready to vote on Monday the 14th for the budget. So several meetings ahead. As I mentioned, the work session is next Monday night here at 7. Community conversations Tuesday the 25th at Christiansburg High School at 7. And another community meeting Tuesday, April 8th at Margaret Beeks Elementary School, also at 7. So we'll also have that information published in the newspaper, and it'll be on our website as well. So if you didn't get a chance to write all those dates down, there's plenty of places to find them. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Mr. Gabriel.
Yeah, just a few things, just a couple of questions before our work session, request for information. And well, actually, first a general question, then there's a request for information. The general question is, do we have any sense that the legislature, of course, is adjourned without a budget? Do we have any sense that that's going to impact our particular budget schedule? Do we need to keep to this schedule? Is it worth thinking about delaying so we're not, passing the budget before we actually know how much money we have from the state or anything like that?
My recommendation at this point would be, let's see what the General Assembly does on March 24th. They're coming back. They've been called back on March 24th. I would recommend, due to the fact that we do twice semi-annual tax billing, I'd recommend that we do our best to stay the course. If the General Assembly does not pass a budget during that time in April, then we'll have to have some discussion about the schedule, because I do also agree that you can adopt a budget without the General Assembly adopting their budget, but it really puts you in a very interesting position if the General Assembly makes changes before.
My particular concern is the fact that we're going to set the advertised tax rate next week before the General Assembly. I mean,
We've had to change it.
and if we may, as Ms. Perkins and Ms. Biggs just said, we might have to come back and change it, if things come back.
Yeah,
And we could do that. I would prefer not to have to work on that, but I don't know if that's consideration. I mean, I know we're under time constraints, to try to get things done. And mine and Chris' first year on the board, we had to delay everything because legislature couldn't do their job like they're not doing their job right now. I don't know if that's something we need to hash out right now, but it is a concern of mine.
It's definitely something you need to talk about next Monday, for sure, when you're having that discussion. If we do an advertised tax rate and budget, and then the General Assembly makes changes to their budget, is there any, I'm looking at Marty when I'm asking.
Well, if it depends, well, if you want to change your tax rate, meaning if you want to raise it, you're going to have to re-advertise. For the budget, if there's a change more than, say, 1%, I think, of a number, you're going to have to redo that as well.
Okay.
The other thing you want to think about is you really don't want to, if it gets to this, you don't want to appropriate full amounts of money if you're not sure about the state budget, because you may not have that money. So if it gets to that, you may have to do like a half-year appropriation or something. So, I mean, that's a whole other issue, but it's also something.
No, I didn't think about the advertised part. But
if it gets into May before they pass the budget, what position does that put us in?
Yeah.
Other than
Tax. That was the unanimous word that I just saw. But,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's May before we see a budget, from what some of the folks in Richmond are saying.
Hopefully they'll decouple the big sticking point, but I don't know that that's going to happen.
Well, there's a law that Doesn't the law say that by April 15th, the school board has to make its decisions about hiring and firing?
Yeah, but I think there's May 1, but I think there's a caveat in there about state money and state budget. If there's a determination not made, then I think that period may be extended.
You mean you can go to May 1 without doing that?
No, the law is May 1. I think.
That's what I...
Yeah, but I think there's a caveat on the state. If the state hasn't determined how much money they're going to give them, then that May 1 date can be extended until such time they get that.
30 days from when they get the
30 days.
Okay.
But the problem tends to be, as you all well know, getting the teacher contracts.
That's what I was saying. It's the contracts.
Well, I can comment on that. When this happened before, what they did is they sent, and they still do this now, but they sent out letters of intent that you turn back in. But of course, nothing's finalized till you get a contract, and sometimes contracts were not delivered until after school was out.
Right.
Of course, this year school's not going to be out till June 20th or so, but you have to take care of it by the end of June.
Yeah, I've started
That
school
helps them.
almost without a contract. We had to push it one time all the way to the end of the summer almost, didn't we?
I just remember getting the contract late.
I think those are one of the issues, but the issue that's always the hardest for us in April is to meet the deadline so the treasurer gets the information and can process the tax tickets. And I think they have to go out 14 days before the due date. So if you take June 5th and you back up, then you sort of know what your time frame is in order for the treasurer to be able to get those, the rate set and the tax tickets out.
Right.
So that's really the one deadline that is closer than what it could be for the schools, depending upon when they decide to get a budget together.
We did that one time too.
I remember one time we actually extended.
Yeah,
past
that's what
June
we
5th,
did.
The collection
Right.
date because of the delay.
Yep. You can do
I
that
was going to say, we had done that in the past.
We'll do some research and make sure we can give you a good accounting of
It really does.
what the ramifications would be next Monday night.
Okay, I'd like to hear that even before we really start discussions, because that could impact.
Yep.
The two things I would like to know, assuming we actually do talk about the budget next week, is I was wondering if the staff could compile just a very kind of brief overview about how much the county has spent in ongoing capital maintenance for county buildings, perhaps including schools, over the past just 5 or 6 years. One of the things that's an ongoing concern, just in what I've been looking at the budget so far, is to make sure that enough money is being devoted to keeping up the buildings that we actually have. And that includes, on the school side as well. So if I could get kind of a sense of that. You could either be overall or percentage of the budget, just something that would show a trend, and so we get a sense of what's going on. The other thing too that I've been emailing Carol about, and thank you very much for the information, is about the crime rate and the incarceration rate at the Western Virginia Regional Jail. I mean, if we could try to get some information before then, that would be great. One thing I noticed, just looking at the data that you sent me, is that the arrests in Christiansburg are way higher than everyone else. So if we could try to figure out what's going on there, if that's where the spike is, or if it's countywide, because it jumped out at me right away when I was looking at the data. So if any more information on that would be greatly appreciated. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Supervisor King.
I just got one thing. I just want to tell Craig I appreciate him getting back with me on the low water bridge on Fairview Church Road. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Citizens are concerned about that. I appreciate you looking that up.
Well, got a great staff. When you guys have questions, they can find me answers fast. So thank you.
Supervisor Creed.
Okay. I'm going to start by reading a letter here that was addressed to Craig Meadows, sent through John Staten, the school board, and it was written and sent by Dan Donato. Says Craig, as recently discussed, we are in the process of pulling together all of the elements of the demolition project we are planning at Shawsville Middle School Annex and related former Shawsville High School sports facilities. This process is not complete and no final decisions have been made. However, the picture of what we'd like to do is becoming clearer to us, and it is time to share that. We are hoping to accomplish the demolition this summer when school is not in session. We think that will be the safest time because daily school traffic and physical education classes that use the field will be minimized or not be present. School ends for students towards the end of June and for teachers a couple of days later. The last teacher day will be sometime between the week of June the 23rd, hopefully. I don't know what's between there, but anyhow. After surveying the site and seeing what is there and what we think needs to be included in the scope, we have coordinated with Shawsville Middle School and with Mitchell Hall and Chris Slusher at Montgomery County Parks and Rec regarding the scope of the demolition. They are the two main users of the site throughout the year. The current thought agreed to by P&R and the school is to demolish all of the old facilities, including the old school press box, bleachers, stadium light poles, concession stand, baseball dugouts, and storage buildings, as well as connecting paths and sidewalks and small parking areas. All of these are deteriorated by time and normal wear and tear and are beyond their useful life and not built to current code standards. Additionally, the school does not require these elements to support their program, as was done with the former school that Brian Hamilton managed through the demolition process. Removal of asbestos-contained materials and other hazardous materials has to precede the demolition. The items we will keep on that side of the road are the tennis courts and associated parking, and the running track. We will topsoil and seed all demolition areas, and we think the site will end up being very versatile and useful, low maintenance, and very attractive compared to what currently exists. As was shared with you, the Ruitons traditionally hold a great 4th of July event in Shawsville that includes a parade and many other activities, with the main venue being the former high school stadium, being in the high school stadium. We are going to see if we can schedule the project around the Ruitons' 4th of July event. But in case that is not possible, I have checked with Danny Knott at the high school, and the high school is willing to host if need be. I have spoken with Carol Carr of the Ruitons a bit today, and I know Gary Creed is also heavily involved in the 4th of July event too. We will strive to keep everyone in the loop and accommodate everyone as much as possible. I will be working with Brenda Blackburn and John Staten to develop a funding plan and request, as previously discussed, utilizing leftover funds from the EMES project that we had hoped to use for demolition. As Brian Hamilton has told us, cost estimating for a demolition project is a tricky business, and a lot depends on the current workload of contractors. We hope to hit the low mark as well as Brian did. Our engineers are developing their estimates as we finalize the scope. I know John Staten and Brenda Blackburn have and will be working with you on this. I wanted to give you the details of the plan that is beginning to take shape. Wasn't that nice? Now, first of all, before I get into this other, the Ruiton Club for the last 35, 40 years has had a parade that goes through Shawsville and ends up down at the school. Absolutely charge nothing for any of the public anywhere to get in. It's free. We sell lottery tickets, we sell items that's donated, we have an auction, we do little things to make as much money as we can in order to be able to give students of Eastern Montgomery a scholarship. We give 2 to 4 every year. Now, with that said, there is no way of moving this window. We put off fireworks, which are donated, somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 worth every year. It comes off of the hill. It's been approved by the people that do this thing, and only to a select few people that can go on that hill and put them off. We put our own off, unlike most other people, because we can't afford to do that. We'd spend all the kids' money if we was to do that. So that is a nailed down place that it has to be, and when they push us completely out of it, then we will have to, I guess, discontinue these scholarships, but that's neither here nor there. Now, a couple of things that they have said, and one, Mitchell Hall, I'm sorry, I called him and talked to him for a little while. He said that they don't have anybody going to that school. That the school board quit working and they just couldn't have a football game there with the school board not working. Well, the school board has worked all last year because Christiansburg does use that field. They use that field, they use Blacksburg, Giles County, Radford City, Pulaski County, Reiner, Floyd County, and Shawsville. All of those schools Christiansburg's use. It's not too bad a place for them to have to not go there. Took the liberty of pulling the schedule for the New River Valley Lacrosse Club today. 9 of their games, guess what? They're going to be held in Shawsville on this nice facility, which 5 years ago was still the best school, not the best school, but best kept field in Montgomery County, bar none. It was absolutely perfect. Due in part to a gentleman by the name of Haygood, who works at Tech and works in producing grasses and whatnot. And he kept that one up spotless, and it was his baby. And of course, he's moved down to the high school now, and this field, still a great field, but it's not quite to the par that he had it at. These people on this lacrosse club play Blacksburg, Shawsville, Williamsburg, Liberty, Olentangy, Ohio. I don't know what that is. Franklin County, Massanutten DLC, Roanoke Catholic, Quaker Valley High School, Williamsburg. Some of these are multiple times. Virginia Episcopal School, Forest, Cave Spring High School Lacrosse Club, Hidden Valley, Franklin County, Forest, and the list goes on. Should have the, in other words, that field, as I have said and told these are folks, it's not a day in the week that somebody's not on that field. And most of the time they're on there from the time it gets daylight until the time it gets dark. And to tear it down is ludicrous. they say that the bleachers that we have are not up to today's code. Well, they got the same bleachers over here at the high school that Blacksburg came over and used. They had a lacrosse, probably a good 100 lacrosse players out there on Saturday that were practicing. And their bleachers, guess what? They're not as nice as the one in Charlottesville. They're made the same way, but they're not nearly as nice because I guess there's nobody over there. All of the ball fields in Charlottesville, the old elementary school, as you go down the straightaway, the one that is vacant now, they all have the same type of bleachers. There's about 8 of those, I believe, down there at the 3 different fields. They're not taking them anywhere. Unless they have a replacement for them, they don't need to be tearing down bleachers. We've got bleachers as good or better than anybody, unless they get one of the new schools that's got the updated version of these bleachers. Now that we don't have. But we've got as good a regular aluminum bleacher as there is. Now, from there, they go to the lights. So they're going to take down the lights. Well, you know, it's funny how people start tearing down things when they didn't cost them a penny to put them up. Nelson Simpson was the principal there at the time that we got football, and he called me and said, Gary, we don't have a place to play football. We don't have any lights. We don't have the money to get lights. I said, Nelson, give me 2 days. And y'all can check it if you want to. 2 days I had him enough money to buy all the lights and the bulbs. So that didn't cost him anything, didn't it? Some of the people, people that are associated with the kids decided, hey, we need to build a concession stand. Didn't cost the county a nickel. It's built as good as anything that they've got. It's built out of cinder block, and there's not a crack in it. We go over the bank. I don't know why they wanted to go over the bank where the baseball field's at, because it's probably as good a field down there as there is anywhere in this county. They have already come in there this spring and cleaned it up, drugged all the stuff off of it, have a dirt infield and grass. I mean, it's a nice. The dugouts are just, they're painted white. But I went in there and inspected them to make sure there's not a crack in there in one of them. Why you want to tear down something that is working and working great? And there's no reason that they can even give for doing that. It's just something they decided they wanted to do. So, if you think that I'm upset, yes I am. Ignorance, there's no cause for it. And to me, that's exactly all they're doing is from unadulterated ignorance for everything that they're doing down there. And there's no reason to have, oh yeah, they're going to tear down the scoreboard there too. The scoreboard might not work for us, but it's been working for all the lacrosse and football. The little pee-wee football, keeping time and stuff on, all last year. You know, I don't understand all I know about it, but I'll assure you this needs to be corrected. It needs to be corrected now.
Can I ask a question? Is it something that we said, hey, we need this cleared up for economic development to be able to sell this property? Anything along those lines? Have we requested this to be done in any way?
No. There's no proposal to sell that property. That property is needed for the middle school to have recess and stuff on. That's their field.
My understanding is they are getting bids to, we knew they were going to be getting bids to take down the annex, the building that's across the street.
Right.
It was somewhat of a surprise that it was as comprehensive as it was. Now, my understanding also is they have not awarded a bid for the work. They are in the process of getting bids to do the work. And I guess as they were developing the RFP to solicit the proposals is when the timing of all this came up. I have not corresponded back to the schools on this issue, but I did let Dan Baronato know that there were some concerns that I'm sure were going to come up from this.
You know, I'm not from Shawsville, but I've been down to the parade several times. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to their community. It's as big a deal as the Price's Fourth Fair. It's as big a deal as stepping out and the Wilderness Trail Days. And now I know that there's an event out in Shawsville, Todd, and you got to forgive me. What?
Reiner Heritage Day.
Reiner Heritage Day. It's all that rolled up into one out in Shawsville. And being part, you know, as chairman of the Republican Party at times, making sure your presence in the parade is well attended. And so that's something that I would like to think that we should be able to continue and try to work with the school board. I was under the impression that they were somehow, because of the communication with Brian Hamilton, that are we going to be getting the annex property across?
No, that property's still being used for the middle school.
Okay.
That building is just deteriorated to the point that I think they feel it's best to eliminate that, but it was a surprise that all the rest of the stuff was coming down.
Yeah, I thought it was just the building.
That's what has been told to us until last week when somebody found out about it that wasn't supposed to find out about it and called me and let me know. Also, they're going to, what else was it? Something just hit. Oh, the stand behind where the announcement stand. They're going to tear that down too, just for good measure. You know, this is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to tear down the stands because that they're not up to par, then put some new ones back there. Because they're being used every day of the summer. It might not be used by all Shawsville people, but a lot of them do go up there and practice. A lot of the girls go up there and have cheerleading practice from the time they're 6 years old right on up. That place is used continually. And I just, you know, it's beyond me. I can't reach out, nobody can reach out and get a hold of them and shake real hard, or I would. But it's just beyond me.
Well, Gary, let me ask you this. I know you stated quite a bit, you gave us quite a bit of information. Is it something that you believe that this board can communicate to the people at the school, or to send?
Well, I'd like to know, and I've asked Craig, and I still don't know, where the money's at.
Oh, it came in the bond issue, didn't it?
Best we can determine that those funds for that demolition, they'll have to come request those from the county.
Well, that's the place that we can stop the foolishness.
Well, I would highly recommend that if there's a consensus of the board to stop that you not wait until they award a bid, that you communicate.
It needs to be stopped now. I mean, don't put them in the same barrel that they tried to put us.
I mean, you would take, it's something about the annex. It's no problem with it going.
Right.
But it's some things there that don't need to go,
Right.
They don't need
that
to
you
go.
use.
The school, I understand that.
Okay.
Take the thing away.
And so, if we shouldn't communicate something to them before it gets that far, like there's no problem with the annex being gone or being destroyed, and even if the bleachers are not to code, you know, or not safe.
Them all over the county.
Yeah, not safe or something along those lines. But to say, hey, we would like to see these items remain, but these can go. And I think they should get some direction, not direction, but some information before us,
I would gladly
like you
meet
said,
anyone that would be interested in seeing exactly what we're working with down there. I will meet you there any time, any day, night that you want to be there.
I'll be more than happy to contact the superintendent and let her know that the board has some concerns about the scope of this project and ask them to provide some information back to us on why that was included.
I would just like to see some information. I mean, I just want some explanation perhaps of what they're trying to do. I mean, I don't want to get into a situation where we're, before we have that information, trying to dictate what they should or shouldn't be doing with property that is still technically under their control. I don't want to get into a situation where we're sabotaging potentially good relations by jumping to conclusions. But
well, again,
I'm fine with getting more information as soon as possible about what's going on, why it's going on, and then having a conversation about that.
Yeah.
So, Mary and Bill, are you guys meeting with? When is your next school board liaison meeting?
The end of the month.
The end of the month.
At the last Thursday. The school board chair's out of town.
So Mr. Jones is out of town. Okay, so so maybe before our next meeting, certainly we could get more information.
Well, absolutely. And again, what I will offer, and Supervisor Creed and I had this conversation at the end of the week, is I wanted to see what the consensus of the board was. But if there's a concern among the board, I'll be more than happy to send a note to the superintendent tomorrow and just make her aware that there's some concerns and we need more information before anything is decided as far as funding for that demolition project.
That's my thumbs up. Yeah.
I thought money for that demolition was in part of one of the bond issues, that the money was set aside for
it is
that demolition. So they have money for the demolition of the building.
Yeah, but they want more. They're going to take what was left over down at Elliston, and they want that too.
There is money that was set aside for demolition work, but that money still has to be am I correct in that, Carol? That money still has to be appropriated for those items.
It has to be transferred to a project.
Thank you.
It has to be transferred to the project. I mean, do we have to approve that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I thought it was already approved when we approved the bond issue. That's what I understood.
Do you have any additional?
No, I'm sick of issues.
Okay. Ms. Perkins.
No, I just thought it was approved when we approved the bond issue. I didn't realize we had to go back and do that. But Carol would know more than I do.
The funds that were set aside in the bond issues, one was to demolish the Elliston Lafayette Elementary School, which happened.
Right.
The other one was to demolish the Price's Fork Elementary School, which is not going to happen. And when the school board gave you some information previously about the balances in those accounts, they had shown money coming from the Price's Fork Elementary School bond issue, or they had earmarked some of those funds to be used for demolition at the Shawsville or Annex building. And so the way the project works, though, it needs to move from a project, if there's excess money, to a different project account to show it's been transferred and approved by the board to use those monies in that particular project. So what needs to occur for this period of time, and it happened the same way for the school security systems, they had funds left over from the Price's Fork account. They put a resolution, they made a request, and they had a resolution come to this board for approval to take funds from Price's Fork and move it into school security. This would be the same thing. It would need to come with a request and then a resolution that would actually take those funds and transfer them into a project account.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
But I don't know. I just didn't see it that way.
Ms. Gary.
Yeah, I just appreciate, I'm through, and I appreciate anybody's help.
Ms. Perkins, you're next for reports.
I don't have a report.
Supervisor Biggs.
Yes, a couple things. Ms. Perkins and I attended the reception for Mary Ann Hinchelwood on Friday night at the Christiansburg Library at 7 o'clock. It was well attended, and I think she surely did appreciate it, and we're just going to all miss her volunteer service for all the different county things that she did. The other thing, at this reception, Steve Hubbard was there, and he asked me to bring to your all's attention that there's going to be a pancake breakfast at Applebee's this Saturday, March 15th, from 8 to 10 a.m. It's all-you-can-eat pancakes, plus an order of sausage, orange juice, and coffee. Kids under 2 eat free, and the tickets are $7. And the reason he wanted y'all to know about this is it's a benefit for the Montgomery Museum. And so he's trying to get people out to come so that they can raise revenue. So I said I would bring that to your attention. And then the other thing I just want to ask, what are we going to do as far as park and ride? I mean, is it feasible to ask that the buses go somewhere else as was suggested tonight, or is that totally not feasible? Since it was brought up, I just thought I would ask that question in public so we could get that cleared. Because I know we're still trying to work on the issue, but is there any way that the buses could go somewhere else?
My guess is we don't own the parking lot. VDOT does, and that's going to...
It's a public lot.
And so I don't know that we have, I mean, we could ask VDOT to...
That's what I mean.
Well, VDOT can't tell us what we can take out of that out of that parking ride. I mean, we can tell, if we furnish them a place, we can make them go anywhere we want it to. VDOT has nothing to do, that I know of, with the buses. That's right.
I thought they owned the land.
They own the land.
They own the land.
No, we're
So
talking
then
about the two buses stopping
Right,
there.
Right, but our Megabus is a private entity.
Yeah.
We can ask them to stop, but as long as it's open to the general public and VDOT allows them, that's VDOT's decision, as I see it. Now,
It's
we
a
can still
public lot.
ask VDOT to say,
In view of what you heard tonight with David Clark hearing it, can't we just ask them to, I mean, what would it hurt us to ask them? Can they move the bus? I mean, they could just say, no, we're not going to do it. That's fine. But at least we've made an attempt to do something while we're trying to work on all the other things.
I don't think that's necessarily productive. I mean, I think we need to actually sort it out instead of panicking and overreacting and potentially alienating Megabus and potential, suitors. I understand the concern, but I mean, we are working on it, and I wish as much as anybody else that we could just wave a magic wand and make this fix. But trying to get everybody on the same page is increasingly difficult. And I understand. I have a 10-year-old. I have a kid in elementary school. I understand what panic is, but I just don't think that's the right way to go. I would not support that.
Have we never asked VDOT to do anything about that?
We've made VDOT aware of the concerns, and they're keenly aware of the concerns, but
we've
never asked them to tell a third party they can't use the lot. No.
Well, if there's no support for that, then that's fine. I just think that, I guess maybe I identify too closely to the concept of what can happen at a school. I think so probably maybe I'm not the best judge to ask a question about it, because I'm passionate about kids. I'm passionate about their safety. I teach in Blacksburg. I know what happens. So maybe I better just withdraw my comments, because I'm speaking to it as, somebody directly involved with children.
Mr. Meadows, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
On following up with Ms. Bates, is that okay, or should I wait till the end?
Just go ahead while we're dealing with it now.
What I don't understand is, once they were made aware of everything that was happening, why did not VDOT, in the whole issue of safety, look for a place as good citizens, as all of us who drive cars pay their costs? Why it is so difficult to have it moved to a place that would be acceptable. I think Matt's right. We got a number of issues that we have to discuss with them. There's no doubt about that. But it really does bother me. Maybe I'm just blocked with this. But when it's made apparent to people that there are various concerns there and they are real, because there have been incidents there that they would not have gotten together with the school system or with us, with whoever, and said, okay, we would like to put them in another place. Now, I know it's business, I know how important it is and all those things, but so are our children. And I'm not going to panic about it, but I can understand how parents and others feel. And I have 2 grandchildren in school, not here, but in Roanoke. So, you always think about it. And I just think that, I don't know, I don't mean to really beat up VDOT, but I really can't see why it can't be done.
They may be perfectly willing to do that.
Yeah.
But if we don't ask them, we'll never know.
Mr. Tuck?
A couple of things, and
Help me.
figuring things out. I don't know that what would it hurt to say, hey, listen, could you move the mega bus stop over to maybe Lucy Monroe's and talk with Lucy Monroe's and say, look, we're going to give you some customers, and there's going to be some folks in there, and yes, they're going to hook up their Wi-Fi, but they're going to buy some coffee, they're going to buy some snacks until we can get this thing sorted out. And also, I think it's not just that bus, but it's also the SmartWays bus is one of the issues. I don't know that, saying you better move it now may not be the right approach, but saying, hey, could you consider moving it and work with it, and then maybe work with somebody like Lucy Monroe's, or maybe work with Hardee's. I'm just thinking several.
Well, that whole front side before you get up to Lucy Monroe's is empty, vacant.
And there's a lot of parking. There used to be, Mickermack and all the, I forgot all the grocery stores that have been there for years. And Tractor Supply is still there.
Yeah.
But there are some businesses that might say, hey, look, we wouldn't mind a Megabus stop. Now, Megabus may not like the way it's coming off, but until we can get this done, I think that might be something that we could move towards and trying to work with these entities to get a temporary fix until we can get a permanent fix.
That's where I'm going.
So,
right. That's my feeling, that something could be worked out to solve. There are two real big problems. One is people who come in for park and ride, to carpool and do a lot of other things to get to job sites and what have you. And then the other one is the mega buses, where people come in and park there and then get on the bus and the SmartWay bus. So it seems that there are two intertwined issues, but you ought to be able to deal with them separately as well as together.
I'm sure that I will be having a conversation with Rob Carey, who's the district administrator for our district this week. I've got a couple of things to touch base with him on. I will certainly pass along that this board is very concerned that that site continues to be there, and encourage them to do whatever they can to move it forward. But
and he comes to our MPO and
yes, ma'am, he does.
He's at every meeting of the MPO down there.
Yeah,
and
he's very easy to talk with.
Yeah, he's out and about a lot.
Okay, the only other thing I have to offer is if you would want me to contact the governor's office through two people that I know that work for the governor to tell him about this public safety issue. I don't know if they can do anything about it, because obviously the delegates have been contacted and nothing's happened. That's the only thing else I have to offer. I don't know what else to do. So if you want me to do that, I'll do that.
You have my support, because they control the dollars that the state have down there some way, shape, or form. And some pressure from the governor's office down through their commissioners and things like that may make something happen. So you have my support. You have Chris's and anybody else's, Gary. So we have consensus for that.
That's
too, yeah.
Okay. I think you try everything you can.
Absolutely.
So could I just ask, like, Mr. Meadows give me a little summary, and I'll just send it to.
Sure.
Okay. That's all.
Mr. Tuck.
It's late. I'm going to try to go quick. I would like to see us add the park and ride to our next closed session, just to get an update of where we're at. in negotiations and looking for a permanent solution. And then since that, I wouldn't, if the board was okay with me and this, and I'd like to think it through, maybe we could bring this up in a couple of weeks, of maybe either having the county administrator or somebody talk to some of the local businesses. Would you be agreeable to moving the parking right over? That's something that I really like that idea, Mary, of moving it and looking at even for a temporary solution. I have also been invited to speak before the Christiansburg Town Council tomorrow night. I understand that I only speak for myself. I don't speak for the entire board, but I've been asked to speak, and I'll be doing that. The other thing is, I had the pleasure of going to an event that Mary was at, and I don't know if any of the other board members were there. The Montgomery County School Foundation had an event and had a bunch of wonderful, talented folks, a choir group from Shawsville, the Christiansburg Quartet, a couple of different groups from Blacksburg, and then some very talented parents who provided some classical music. It was a wonderful event, and Connie Croggett really brought that together. She puts in a lot of effort, and I just wanted to recognize that is a good event. If you get a chance to go, perhaps next year, that would be a really good event.
There's one other thing that I probably should bring up. In the Crooked Road is going to be in Blacksburg.
Going to be in I should have those dates, and I don't.
On the 22nd.
They're also having an event in Christiansburg.
This whole series at Center for the Arts at Virginia.
They're having Center for the Arts, and then they're also doing some. I'll get Lisa to send that out because
that's some real good music.
Yes, sir.
I know they also having a small one in Shawsville, gospel singing with a couple, three of the churches down there getting together to have about an hour's worth of, it's two different ones, so 2 hours, I guess, total of singing gospel music. So that's something that.
Can I just ask a quick
Yes.
question to Mr. Tuck? You mentioned you're going to speak in front of the Christiansburg Council. Is that about the part?
It's several different things. They asked me to kind of give an idea of where I think the county's going in the next year, to give them an idea. I'm sure, and they're going to ask me some questions about that. But I don't believe that I should disclose anything that's been in private session, obviously.
Yeah.
But just to simply say that is something that I believe it was a couple of meetings, or not last week, but the week before last, that Bill said this is an important issue for all of us on this board. And
I'm just curious, was the request made directly to you, or was it made to the board, and then did any request the board send a representative, and then you were delegated? So they made a request directly to you.
I had been talking with the mayor and said that I was willing to come talk with the town council at any point in time that they wanted me to. I did that approximately 2 years ago, and just kind of gave them an overview of what I thought the county's budget was going to be like. And spoke with the town council about my position. Because I represent a large chunk of Christiansburg, I was invited over there. I haven't been invited to speak over at Blacksburg, but in Christiansburg, I was invited, and so I wanted to take that invitation up. Again, I understand, I do not speak for the whole board in any way, shape, or form, but I do represent a large chunk of Christiansburg.
Okay, yeah, it's just...
Is that it, Mr. Tuck?
That's it.
Well, a couple things. One, I'd like to ask Mr. Meadows, does he feel comfortable going to businesses, speaking for a VDOT, when you walk into Hardee's to speak to their manager and says, would it be okay for Megabus to stop here? And they said, well, you want to lease something from us? What do you plan to do? And things like that. And you can't answer those questions. You take a VDOT representative to answer those questions.
I would not be comfortable in that role unless the board has given me the authority to enter into agreements with business owners. And I know I heard earlier a discussion about this issue perhaps in closed session. I'd much rather have more of that discussion then, but the thing I want to point out again, and I know the thing that I appreciate about this board very much is you're trying to solve a community issue. but it's a VDOT issue. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. It's a VDOT issue. And, I mean, what we're talking about is using county tax dollars to solve a state issue. Now, we do that all the time with a whole lot of things, but we need to have a lot of discussion about that. I'm very aware of several of the sites. One issue that I would be concerned about with the Lucy Monroe site is there's a private school at that site. So you're moving it from one school site to another school site. You know, there have been some discussions with property owners. There has been some movement. The bottom line, as with a whole lot of issues that we deal with, is who's going to pay for it.
Right.
And we've got to have some more discussion about that.
We don't have a resource officer there. Is that?
It's because it's in the town of Christiansburg.
Yeah, because it's in the town of Christiansburg, and Christiansburg is not amenable to having a resource officer there.
But Chris is going to speak to them.
I don't know that they're not amenable. I think they did pay for a resource officer to be there for a period of time, and they flipped the bill for it. I know that there was some debate about who is responsible for resource officers, and I know that we did receive the grant from the Sheriff's Department, but we made, not from the Sheriff's Department, from the state regarding the Sheriff's Department, but we evaluated that and looked at it. I don't believe that I would say that it's Christiansburg who is saying we don't want a resource officer there.
I didn't say that.
I know, but it kind of came out that they were barring it.
I didn't say that either.
Okay. But as far as the other ideas in regards to Pathway Christian, that's a very valid point, Craig.
Yes, it is.
And we're moving one problem to one area.
Don't want to do that.
And that's why I was saying, let's talk about that perhaps in closed session, look at different aspects of it. And try to find a temporary solution, perhaps, until we can find a permanent solution.
And to answer the board, I'll be glad to do whatever you guys would like me to do, but that also requires some authority to make agreements and whatnot, and so that's a...
Well, I'd like to see something like if you talk to Rob Carey and he says, what about if my board authorizes me to go out and talk to some properties along that corridor through there that would allow the megabus to stop there. The way I gather from the permits is not the SmartWay bus. They megabus people, you know.
That's when the issue really...
That's when it all
most
started.
of the SmartWay people are local people who
And they're not
commute
looking
back.
for chargers and bathrooms.
That's right. And but to, you know, says, what if I go down and line up a few people that your VDOT representative could come talk to help us move the with the megabus? If he says, no, we're not interested in doing that, then it's a moot point.
It's over.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
But I just wonder about our county administrator going down talking to some of the businesses there, and they say, oh yeah, we'll sign this lease right here, you know, for us, the county, to pick up some dollars. Second thing, and you want to comment?
I was just saying, I thought it was to begin exploring again, because we said we've never asked them, we never talked to them. I mean, you have, obviously, because you know
but if
what's gone on before, and I don't, but I'm saying we explore the fact that we would like to have those buses not go there.
Right.
That's all we're asking.
Now, I'd like to add one thing and just sit here, and it keeps coming back at me, so I should say it. Park and ride where Lucy Monroe's is at probably is not going to be controlled by Lucy Monroe's.
Oh, it's
whoever's owned a lot.
They're leasing themselves. You would, maybe the lot on the right as you go up in there, the big area that's vacant, you'd be much more likely to get that than you would anything up where Lucy Monroe's is at. And it would be away then from the schools.
But Pathway Christian is up there, and Craig's point is very valid. We move it from one problem to another problem, and we create, I hadn't thought about when I was thinking out loud when we were discussing it.
Well, and I won't take full credit for that. Derry left a little earlier. Derry sent me a note and said, "Oh, by the way, don't forget that." I said, "Oh yeah."
But you're moving from 100 foot away to over 1,000 foot away. If you went to the front of that.
It's getting late, and, well, I got one statement to make, and Mary, please take it for what it's worth. But I'm just as passionate about children as you are, okay? I think Matt and the rest of us and all of us are just as passionate.
My wife's a teacher.
So please take that for what it's worth. We're just as concerned about that problem out there as you are. And as far as I'm concerned, if there's no other comments, we are adjourned.
Right.
Yeah.